A century-old curse.
Classmates are in for tonight.
One by one, they have disappeared.
You're too close. Things have been quiet for 5 years, and that's the way we want to keep it. Help! Just damn that Paul, him and his wilderness bullshit.
I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason.
Paul, there's someone in this fucking room! Jason!
It's all done, Jason. You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased.
Hi, this is Lauren Marie Taylor from Friday the 13th Part 2 and Girls Night Out. And you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Yes, welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, and this time we are returning to Camp Crystal Lake for the second time with a Friday the 13th Part 2 themed episode, which we're all very excited about because, as you can probably imagine, Friday the 13th Part 2 is one of our favourite movies, and I think we'll probably all agree on that. So got plenty to come up, but without further ado, I shall introduce you to our fellow happy campers. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm okay.
Okay. Any more to add, or you're just okay? Well, that's good.
It's really warm here.
Is it? Oh, well, it's not so warm here. Is it still? Because last time we spoke, you said it was so hot you could fry an egg on the sidewalk.
Oh, yes, it's worse now. It got up to 107 yesterday.
Wow, what's that in centigrade?
I'm not sure what centigrade is, but it sounds like retrograde. Is that the same thing?
It sounds like the human centigrade.
Human centigrade. No, well, I don't know. It's 30 degrees is hot here, but we rarely.
Oh, wow, that's really cold here.
Is it? But I think that's yeah. Well, we won't get into centigrade Fahrenheit discussion just now because it's probably not the best thing to be doing. But well, I'm glad you're nice and warm.
It equals about 41 degrees Celsius or centigrade.
Oh, really? 41? Wow, that is
quite hot, yeah.
Yes. Well, how are you doing, Erik?
Well, I'm okay. The computer told me I was a dead fuck, but apart from that, I'm okay.
Oh, yes. Jumping ahead to part 4 there, I think, for a little reference to part 4.
No, the computer just actually did tell me I'm a dead fuck.
Did it?
Yeah.
That's not very nice. Is Siri? No. Is it like the kind of the iPhone thing? Did you say, what am I? And it said, you're a dead fuck?
Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
Gosh. But, and Joseph, how are you doing?
I'm quite well despite the heat, but I just need to say that there's no seconds on chunky Kit Kats for Erik tonight.
Oh, no. Eric's been poking around that campground again, haven't you?
I have.
Yes, he has.
Poking away.
You're too close, Erik. Things have been quiet for 5 years, and we want to keep them that way.
Mm-hmm. You've been looking for Muffin.
I'm always looking for Muffin.
Yes.
Somehow I don't believe that.
But
just to get back to the weather-related conversation, Nathan, it's 59 degrees Fahrenheit here in Dublin at the moment.
Oh, okay, that's nice. I want that.
Oh, you're welcome to it.
Well, Nathan, if it'll make you feel any better, I think tonight the heat wave ends, and it's supposed to be like in the upper 80s all week this week.
I can live with that.
Yeah, me too. I hate this weather. It's just brutal.
Well, also just to say, just in case you're confused and it's really cold where you are when you hear this, we're recording this special Friday the 13th episode a fortnight before we actually release it. So, because again, our jet set lifestyles, we are all, we're kind of all have lots of different things to do. So we're trying to fit everything around each other. So we wanted to make sure we had a Friday the 13th episode ready for July the 13th, which is when hopefully this will air. And hopefully the sound issues that plagued the last podcast, our Bloody Moon podcast, will hopefully be a thing of the past, but keep fingers crossed. Also, just say I'm a little bit hungover today. I haven't been hungover for a little while on the podcast, have I? I've been quite good, but we had a Poseidon Adventure theme party last night, and yes, we had like a big bowl of sea breeze.
Did you go down, Justin?
I went down many times with bobbing crabs.
You're so naughty.
Good boy.
I don't remember them getting drunk when the Poseidon went down.
Well, they were all quite merry, weren't they? They were quite merry. Did you see the photos of our upside down Christmas tree?
I like the upside down Christmas tree.
Yes.
That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
We didn't climb it, but
who were you dressed as again?
Well, I originally was dressed as the captain, Leslie Nielsen. But you didn't see the photos of that, and then I came as a Greek widow.
Oh, I was thinking that was you.
Yes,
because it was hard to tell because you had huge big shades on that masked half your face. But I was thinking it was you.
Yes. There wasn't a Greek widow. I was kind of Jackie Onassis. It was kind of a bit of a shipping thing going on, but.
See, I thought the guy with the grey beard was you. It kind of looked like you.
No, that was Manny.
Oh, okay.
Oh, from the Stone Roses?
No, from Poseidon Adventure. He's Shelley Winter's husband. Belle's husband.
No, the guy, the actual guy who was dressed up, he actually kind of looked like you in the photo.
Okay. Well,
angle. I don't know.
Plenty of fun was had, and paying for it a little bit now, but not too bad, actually, considering I thought it might be worse. So, but anyway, enough of the preamble. Back to Friday 13th, and we've got a great show coming up. We've got an interview with Russell Todd, who played Scott in the Friday sequel. Erik, you spoke to him, didn't you? This is a second part of an interview. Actually, you did a while back.
I did this interview actually last July, so it's almost a year old. Or it is a year old. Today is the 1st of July.
You'd interviewed him for Chopping Mall, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And on the same day, I interviewed him for Friday 2, assuming correctly, as it turns out, that we would cover it at some stage.
Yes. And so we've got that coming up. We've also got another top 3, and it's top 3, and this is where the cat flushing toilet really comes to the fore, because we're doing the top 3 worst Friday the 13th moments. So see if you agree. If you don't agree, let us know, and we'll be giving some details about feedback a little bit later. But first up, guys, should we talk about... I think it's only a week since we last recorded, but have you been watching anything of note? How about you, Nathan? You said last time you were going to see what you could watch some scary movies.
I watched an unbelievably incredible film last night that I've seen many times, and it's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Movie
here we
House
go.
Massacre. It's called Movie House Massacre, and it is awesome and wonderful. And I made Wes watch it, and he did not like it. So I think his taste in movies is a little suspect. But it's just a brilliant film, and I don't want to say too much about it because I am going to be picking it very soon.
Well, let's just say I hope I can get hold of Serena, the usherette. Let's see. Keep fingers crossed.
That's the door opening.
Yes. Wes was like, are they on Star Trek? He's like, why is the doors making that sound?
It's a very odd movie. But that'll be an interesting one for you to cover. I think I might outdo you for my next pick, Nathan. But that's all I'm going to say when it comes to bad
possible.
movies. Oh, I think it actually is. I think it really is.
I'm interested now. You have to tell us after the show.
I have an idea, so I want to see if it's what I'm thinking.
You have to tell us after we stop recording.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll see how masochistic or sadistic I'm feeling.
Well, Nathan's next, right? And then it's you, so yeah.
Okay,
well,
let's...
You already know what my next pick is. I'm very excited about it.
Yes,
yes.
And you are unanimous in that.
Actually, I am excited about that one. I like that one.
Good.
Okay. Right. Well, yes, we'll be saying at the end of this episode, won't we, what the next pick is? So stick around for that. Anything else, Nathan?
No, not really. Wes made me watch Superman 3 because I
love Superman 3.
It was awesome just because it's so bad, it's hilarious. It is so stupid.
But that scene,
if you want to see bad, watch part 4.
I mean, the thing is, I loved it because it was so bad.
Yeah, but
and where was Lois Lane? She's in it for like 3 minutes.
I think she wanted too much money.
That Richard Pryor took up a lot of screen time.
But you
if you want to see really bad, watch part 4 with the solar guy as his enemy. Yeah. That is hideously awful.
And John Cryer from Pretty in Pink is in it as well.
Yeah,
what were you going to say, Erik?
I was going to say, do you not think that scene where the woman is turned into a robot used to freak me out when I was young? It's really scary, I think, no?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe when I was young, I might have thought so, but just watching it now, I thought it was all funny.
And I like the bit where Superman splits in two, sort of good Superman and bad Superman. That was fun, I thought.
Yeah.
And he fixes the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yes.
And then he leans it back again.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it's part 3, but It may be part 2. It's been so long since I've seen him. But the guy that when Superman's Clark Kent and he loses his powers, is that part 3?
That's part 2.
Okay, that's part 2. The guy that beats him up in the coffee shop is one of the guys from Scream, the old 1981 film. The Bob character is always like getting angry. He's the one that beats up Superman.
Somebody in the original Scream had a second credit. Whoa!
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I thought some of them were like Western actors from yesteryear or something.
Yeah, they were.
They were
Plus,
slumming at Scream.
I think that guy, his name's Pepper Martin. He was in Superman 2. I think he was a baseball player at one point.
He was also in Return to Horror High.
Yeah, that's right. He was, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't think I've seen Superman 3 or Superman 4, so one day. But anything else, Nathan?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. How about you, Erik?
Yeah, I rewatched Dario Argento's Opera during the week, and it's a film. What?
No, that's my favorite one.
Oh, is it? Because I was about to say
Yes.
I really like it, and I think it's even better than Tenebrae, and I think it is his last grade A film. It's about a young opera singer she's an understudy, and the lead in the opera of Verdi's Macbeth is knocked down and she breaks her legs, so she takes over and then ends up being stalked by a maniac who ties her up and forces her to watch as the killer murders her friends. He straps pins under her eyes so she can't shut them, which I think is really an interesting idea. And there's plenty of trademark Argento swooping camera moves, and there's a fantastic sequence where Daria Nicolodi gets shot in the head. Spoiler alert-ish, because it happens maybe halfway through the film, where you see the bullet. She's looking through a keyhole to see who's at the door, and he fires the gun, and you can see the bullet in slow motion going through the keyhole, and it blasts her in the head, and it goes right through her head and makes a telephone explode behind her, which I think was a fantastic sequence. And it's something he tried to replicate, not that particular scene, but he tried to replicate the funny camera angles and all that in Stendhal Syndrome, but this time using CGI, and he failed miserably, I thought. But I do think Opera is fantastic. As I said, his last great film, and I thought better than Tenebrae and Phenomena. But yeah, I was watching that. It was the first time I've seen it in a number of years, and really enjoyed it.
I would agree. I love opera, but did you think William McNamara's dubbing was just horrendous? It just did not fit his body or his face.
Which one is William McNamara?
He's the one that's in Copycat, and he gets stabbed in the throat.
I haven't seen Cop. Oh, he's the one who gets stabbed in the throat in Opera.
Yeah, he was pretty famous in the late '80s and early '90s. But
I liked his
an American actor. His dubbing was just atrocious. It's like
I liked his New Romantic Fringe was what I liked most about him.
It's kind of there was a program which I think you've probably got in America called Eurotrash, which they used to do interview people from the continent, and they used to put on really, really stupid, inappropriate accents for them. And so they would have like a little old man speaking, and they'd have a really gruff voice, or a kind of attractive young woman speaking, and make her sound like a sort of gravelly old grandma. And it was kind of, that's what they did with opera a bit, didn't they? When they did this, there must have been the Eurotrash school of overdubbing, I think. But it does add to the charm.
It does, much like in Bloody Moon last week.
Oh yes.
Speaking of Eurotrash and Bloody Moon, Jess Franco once appeared on Eurotrash in an interview. Again, he was dubbed with, probably a deep Yorkshire accent or something. But I watched another Jess Franco during the week, which was Countess Perverse, which has just come out on the Mondo Macabro label, and it's one I hadn't seen before. It's kind of the most dangerous game done in the style of Jess Franco. There's a girl who goes to an island, and there are two sort of cannibalistic people living there who not only like to eat human flesh, but like to make their prey suffer by setting them loose in the woods and then running after them with a bow and arrow to kill them. It's very Jess Franco is what I'll say about it. Every 10 minutes, the film stops dead in its tracks for a scene of two sort of lesbians, munching on each other's bits for 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And it does drag in those scenes, believe it or not. But on the whole, I thought it was fairly decent. It's got this incredible... What are you laughing at?
Sorry. It's just you were talking about lesbians munching on each other's bits, and then you said "on the whole." I thought.
Ooh, that deserves a matron and a half right there.
It does. Hold on, let me just get it up.
No, please. Oh, your hand.
Well, what's really good about this film, I thought, was there's this incredible location. There's this house that looks like it's on an island, but I think in reality it's on the mainland. But the house itself is this weird avant-garde design. It looks like the Cabin in the Woods poster. You know the Cabin in the Woods poster where it looks like the cabin is a Rubik's Cube? This building looks like that, and it actually is obviously it's a real building. There's no way Jess Franco could afford to construct something like this on his budgets. But it's a place called Xanadu, believe it or not, that's in a town called, I think it's Kelpa in Spain. It's halfway between Alicante and Valencia. And it's just an incredible design. I mean, it does look exactly like the Cabin in the Woods poster, and like the interiors are just as spectacular. And he really gets good mileage out of that. I mean, it's a brief 75 minutes. So apart from the lesbian munching, I thought it was pretty fast-paced and intriguing.
Well, is that house? It's not. I've seen not that one, but one where it's got like a kind of James Bond lair type thing with big windows. It's not that one, is it?
It could be. I mean, I'd be very surprised if it hadn't. Like, it appears in another Jess Franco film, they say on the extras, but I'd be very surprised if it hadn't been used by sort of bigger budget productions, because it's very unique looking and really striking.
Okay, yeah, no, I just saw it on like some property program, and they showed people buying stuff abroad, and they showed people around that as a potential place to buy. And it, sorry, excuse me, it was on for about €1 million or something like that. But yeah, it looked amazing.
Well, my friend Stephen Thrower does an interview on the DVD. He says that they're going for $250,000 now if you want an apartment in the Xanadu complex, really? which isn't that expensive really. No. In this day and age.
No, it's not actually, especially in Spain. Right, well, I must admit, I'm not in any great rush to watch any more Jess Franco. I'm not sure if he's my cup of tea, but apart from, I love Bloody Moon, but all the other, apart from Faceless, I did enjoy Faceless, but I kind of, most of he's kind of more known, isn't he, for those kind of surrealist kind of lesbian style things, which if that's your cup of tea, then great, but it's not really.
Well, the Euro cult, I should call him, actor Howard Vernon does get his knob and bum out in this one as well, so it's not all just lesbians.
Right, well, mind you, he's not a looker really, is he, Howard Vernon? No. So yeah, well, okay, well, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And what about you, Joseph?
Well, I rewatched From Dusk Till Dawn, and I love that film. I love the twist in the middle, because it's one of the movies I saw and I didn't know it was a vampire film. So, the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is just a crime movie and it's pretty good. And then, bam, the vampires attack. But that's all I'll really say. I mean, I've seen it 1,000 times and I still enjoy it. Oh, come on. It's like 20 years old. If you haven't seen it by now, go fuck yourself. But, sorry, I'm not that rude.
How dare you?
I also rewatched Feast. I'd seen that when it came out, and I didn't really remember much about it. And watching it again, I think I know why, because I don't really care for anyone in the film. And another problem I have with it is it has this one joke where it puts like their life expectancy on the screen, and they do it over and over. The first couple times it's kind of humorous, but then they just like beat you over the head with it. And a lot of the humor in the film is that way. They just don't know when to quit. And finally, I hated the camera work in this. I mean, the camera would not sit still for not even a second. I mean, it was always like shaking back and forth, swooping, whoosh, whoosh. It beats you to death, and I don't know. I didn't hate the film, but I probably won't go out of my way to watch it ever again.
It sounds to me like you did hate the film.
Well, I mean, it had some great moments, some great gore, and I love the creatures in the film. But other than that, I mean, it's not something, I don't know. From Dusk Till Dawn, which is very similar in tone and in story, is much better.
Oh, fair enough. Anything else?
No, I mean, it's only been a week, so that's been about it.
Fair enough. Okay. Just quickly recap what I've been watching. Again, it's only been a week, but I watched the first time a film called The Uncanny from 1977, which is kind of a late portmanteau, those kind of like Tales from the Crypt style Amicus style kind of sort of horrors where you've got 3 stories with a wraparounds, and this one it's from 1977. It's got Peter Cushing, who is convinced that cats are evil and are going to take over the world, which is a theory I kind of guess, but. And so there's 3 kind of wraparound stories. It's not particularly good. It's not like in anywhere near the kind of the level of Vault of Horror or Tales from the Crypt, and you can see why these kind of films kind of died out in the late 70s. But of interest to slash movie fans and possibly to Erik as well is that it features Samantha Eggar and John Vernon from Curtains, so together on screen perhaps for the first time. And obviously they went on to do Curtains 5 years later after that. So have any of you seen that?
No.
That sounds familiar. I think I have seen that a long time ago.
It's all the stories are kind of linked with cats. They're all kind of like evil cats doing things and,
Flushing toilets?
Flushing toilets? No, they didn't flush a toilet, I don't think. But they did... There's Susan Penn Halligan, who was a kind of she was kind of quite famous in the 70s. She plays a chambermaid who kind of murders the woman she's looking after, and the old woman's cats attack her and claw her to death.
Wait a minute. What's the one with? There's a cat movie. I think it might have George Kennedy in it. Am I thinking of the right?
That's the Uninvited.
That's the one I've seen. So no, I haven't seen the one Justin's speaking about.
I love the Uninvited.
It's brilliant.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah,
it's Shari. Is it Shari Shattuck? Is her name? She steals that movie for me.
That's such a good movie, and you shouldn't get it confused with the is it the Val Lewton Uninvited? I think it's Val Lewton's Uninvited.
The remake of Tale of Two Sisters, which is known as Uninvited as well.
Yeah, this is prime 100% grade cheese, isn't it, from start to finish, with a cat hand puppet attacking people, a mutant cat on a boat, which is is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I wish I'd watched that actually rather than the Uncanny. But I saw that, and I also rewatched. I can't remember if I said last time, but Switchblade Romance, Haute Tension, rewatched that, and that still sort of really stands up. So. And I'm sure, especially you, Nathan, will be very pleased. I've just bought Eden Lake on Blu-ray, so we're going to be watching that tonight. So
have you haven't seen it yet, have you?
No, I've seen it. It's just I'm just kind of catching up with some of the, but basically I kind of, I tend to buy some of the films on Blu-ray once they come out, and I've seen them, but once they go down to it's about £5, which was about $7 or $8 or something now. So I thought I'd just add it to the collection. But
I don't mind Eden Lake. I just turn it off before it ends. That's all.
But of course, Eden Lake's got Michael Fassbender in it, hasn't it? Who's now kind of pretty famous, isn't he? He's in a lot. But he's good turn in that. So. But yes, that's what I've been watching. But we're veering nicely from perhaps some of the best stuff to some of the worst. And I think, shall we delve into the very, very depths of the Friday the 13th universe? And I think starting off, I think we have Joseph's first pick. Okay, Joseph, why is that your number 3 pick for the worst Friday the 13th moments?
I think that's supposed to be scary, but at the same time, it's hilarious. I mean, who sits there while they're getting chopped up with a machete or a hatchet or whatever it is Jason's using and sits there and screams, "He's killing me! He's killing me!" I always thought that scene was just bizarre, and it's so cringeworthy because the dialogue is just so weird. I mean, I don't think I would say he's killing me. I think I'd be just screaming, and I mean he does a lot of screaming.
Maybe he's trying to launch into a version of Killing Me Softly, and he just can't get the softly bit out because he's
killing me with a machete. Sure, that could be it.
Do you want to remind our listeners if they don't know which one of the series that's from?
That's Friday the 13th 4, the final chapter. And you should know that if you're listening to this episode.
Yes, or else there will be a test later. No, they won't actually. No,
right.
No. But they might.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just that's it. That's all I have to say about it.
Okay. Well, what about you guys, Nathan? Is that something you would have picked?
I mean, I don't know if I necessarily would have picked it, but I can understand why Joe chose it, because it is kind of, awkward, I guess, dialogue. I mean, I've never seen another movie where somebody's screaming, he's killing me, he's killing me. I mean, I don't know. It just seems kind of odd. I'm sure Jason, as he was killing him, was thinking, why the hell is he screaming that?
Yes, indeed. Well,
it's pretty obvious that that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. He's not giving him a haircut, is he? Or trimming his nails.
The guy needed one.
Giving a makeover. But, well, yes. Well, I think we might have some controversial sort of picks on here. So, Erik, I think this is your number 3.
You'd give me in the leg, and you're not going to get me now.
Okay, short and sweet. It's not really a moment in the Friday series as such. It's more a character, and it's Rennie from Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. I think she's by far the weakest final girl in all of the entire franchise. I hate her premonitions and her encounters with sort of Jason, either real or imagined, and her stupid emotional dialogue and the way she goes around with a sulky face on her for the entire film. There's a scene where Jason comes out of a mirror in a vision, and the makeup is crap. The child actor playing Jason is crap. She's crap. Her hair is crap. Everything's just crap. It's Crappy Crapperson from the planet Crap, and that's all I can say about it.
Don't hold back.
No.
Tell us how you really feel, Erik.
No, I mean, the actress herself, there's nothing terribly wrong with her. It's just the character is so weak and just, she's like, I don't know, don't take this as an offensive way, Justin, but she's like a goth or something. She's just miserable the whole time. She's like an emo or something, except she dresses like she's from Pretty in Pink or Breakfast Club.
Emos are miserable. Goths aren't miserable, to be fair to Justin.
Well, there's nothing miserable about Justin. He's very happy.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, when I was a goth, many years ago, say back 20 odd years ago, I was never miserable. I hung around in graveyards and drank Snake Night and Black, but always had a sense of humour about it, which I think you need to if you're doing that kind of thing. But yes, I mean, to be fair, she was saddled with perhaps the worst perm in history. Although that was 89, wasn't it, or something? So that probably was the worst year for fashion in the entire year.
It's the worst year for Friday the 13th as well. Well, one of.
Yes.
Well, that film effectively ended the series, didn't it?
It ended Paramount's involvement anyway.
Yeah, which is a shame. I mean, I do. I love the artwork. I think the artwork for the two ones, the original one of Jason coming through I Love New York poster is fantastic, and also I've just bought a kind of advanced one sheet of the one with Jason hovering over, kind of looming in over Manhattan with a big knife. With New York's got a new problem, and it had so much potential, that film, didn't it? But to be fair,
it's got a great teaser trailer as well.
The teaser trailer is fantastic, and to be fair, it's kind of, I think that Paramount were so stingy with their budgets, considering how much money these films made. They could have chucked enough money at this to actually have made this in New York and actually had at least half the film there, rather than the big cheat, which was essentially Jason on a Love Boat and then stopping off at New York or Vancouver, as it was, right at the end, or not right at the end, but the last quarter of the film. And so it had its problems. But
I do think there are some good elements to it, but I think the last, once they get to New York / Vancouver, I think it turns really, really dull, and that should have been the moment where it really became really exciting.
It's definitely the worst of the Paramount entries, I'd say.
I would say as well, yeah.
Yes, okay. Agreed.
Well, I'm not quite sure, so we might come on to that later. Nathan, did you have any thoughts on that particular character?
I don't mind her really, but I do agree that she's the weakest heroine in the entire series.
Okay.
Sorry, Rennie. I still like you.
Well, let's see if we can interview her when we finally get round to the Part 8 episode, which might be, God knows, whenever that might be. But Nathan...
Tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Nathan, it's your number 3. You haven't got a sound clip here, but do you want to tell us what is your third worst moment or scene or character from the Friday 13th series?
There's not, much I could do as far as a sound clip goes, but I just picked this scene. It's not even really a worse scene in my opinion. It was just kind of, I don't know, comical. So I had to pick it. It's from part 7, and it's Jason is chasing the doctor, Dr. Cruz, and Tina's mother, and then he kills Tina's mother with a bush axe, and then Dr. Cruz runs off, and then suddenly Dr. Cruz trips and falls, and then Jason just appears with a giant, tree saw or something. Or I'm like, where is he getting all these weapons at? I mean, somebody left their tree trimmer, I guess, sitting, in the forest somewhere. So, he just kind of picked it up and thought, oh, this will be pretty good. So, and, he took off with it, I guess. But I don't know. I always thought that was amusing when suddenly he just pulls this weapon into the camera's view. It just seemed odd to me.
Wasn't it a flymo? Was it? Do you get flymos in America? Those kind of circular sort of grass cutters. Because it wasn't in originally. It was supposed to be one of the goriest kills, wasn't it? In the
we called them weed eaters.
Right,
that's what we call them here.
That doesn't look like a weed eater to me.
No, it's not a weed eater. That's like a branch trimmer or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Okay. But Jason, I mean, that's such a convenient weapon, or he has an accomplice placing weapons in the woods conveniently at convenient locations.
Yeah, well, yeah, you might. But yeah, well, I do. I still really like Friday 13th Part 7.
Whoa.
Somebody's battery's fallen out. Is that your
Sorry, that was a marble fell off of my desk.
A marble?
Ooh. Yes, a big pewter-looking marble.
Okay. Well, okay.
Sorry for the interruption there.
That's okay. Was there anything else you wanted to say about that Nathan?
No.
No? Okay. Right. Well, in that case, this is my worst moment, the third worst moment from Friday 13th series.
What do I do?
Kill it.
It might bite.
Haven't you ever been in the woods?
We're not in the woods. Jesus, what are you doing? There's a snake in here.
Why are we in here?
Whoa, don't fail me now.
Well, we criticised Bloody Moon last time for killing a snake on screen, and funnily enough, well, not funnily enough, but perhaps bizarrely, the follow-up film, Friday the 13th, they also kill the snake, a real snake, on screen. I presume it's a real snake, is it?
It looks it to me, yeah.
It looks it to me, and I think it's perhaps even more unforgivable in Friday the 13th, considering you had Tom Savini supposedly. Well, no, he was the person who did special effects, and the special effects we know in Bloody Moon were a little bit crude, whereas in Friday the 13th, the original Friday the 13th, they were pretty polished, and actually they kind of raison d'etre of the film. They were the selling point of the film, so it makes it even more reprehensible that they would have chosen to kill a snake in this film, and it serves no purpose whatsoever, really, does it? It doesn't drive the story forward, doesn't do anything, and so that's always been it never really gets talked about, but that's always been I think it's the only time in the whole series that an animal gets killed, but for real, and so that's my number 3. Would you agree, guys?
Yes. I would have picked it if you didn't.
Yeah. It's just I just don't know why. It just doesn't really, apart from a cheap thrill, it doesn't, or not even a thrill, but a cheap shock. It doesn't add anything to the film.
No, and as we were saying last week, of all the animals to recreate as a special effect, the snake is probably one of the simplest.
Yes.
Yeah, just get a big rubber snake. They look
exactly.
Real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With good editing, I mean, it could look like you've killed one, very easily.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I seem to remember when I interviewed some people from The Burning, they said that Tom Savini was really frightened of spiders, so maybe he's frightened of snakes as well. I don't know, but and they were laughing about how he was kind of very kind of like this kind of big butch man, was very scared of kind of wildlife. So, but yes, I don't really understand why they did that, but that was my number 3. So, moving on, we know what's coming next. I think
bring it on home.
And it's very appropriate in this instance.
can't take more than a poke in the ribs to put down this old dog. Yeah, that ought to do it.
Okay, Joseph.
Ooh.
That is from Jason X, and one of the fundamental problems I have with that movie, aside from Todd Farmer's crappy writing, is that, well, actually, to be honest, I hate the entire movie. I can't stand Jason X. I think some of the humor just really destroys what could be, a good campy thrill ride. But his sense of humor is just so, okay, someone just got stabbed, so they're going to, immediately shove out a one-liner. And I hate that kind of humor. And they did that in Scream 4. And we talked about that when that was released, when Anthony Anderson's character got stabbed in the head. And anytime a movie does that where someone is, facing death and then they just have this cute little ha-ha-ha line, it really makes me cringe. So that's why I picked that. And plus, yeah, again, I hate Jason X.
Okay, tell us how you feel, Joseph.
Okay, I hate Jason X. There.
What about you guys? How about you, Nathan?
I like Jason X. I think it's fun.
But would you agree with what Joseph said about those kind of some? Because I've got mixed feelings about it, because I
do too.
Yeah, I mean, I really like some of the stuff. Like the humour works with the hologram of the the horny campers and stuff like that. That kind of, I quite like that. That's quite witty and fun. But yes, I agree when things something like this kind of just takes you completely out, and it crosses that line, doesn't it?
See, I would disagree there, because if I recall correctly, in the hologram scene, the girls said something like, "We enjoy having sex and smoking pot," and no one would really say that in the earlier films. They would just do it. I hate that whole didactic. Yeah, that's the joke. That's like didactic. It's beating you over the head. That's the joke. The joke should be them doing it and then him killing them. It bothers me. I don't like stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Well, I
like it because I think it's like them misinterpreting what the past was really like. I mean, they're treating Jason like he's a moron, and I think that's kind of the joke, is that they're treating Jason like
I don't think Todd Farmer's script was that smart. I don't think he was as smart as you are, so I have to disagree.
Then I will take your compliment, even though you disagree with me.
You better, because that's the last one you're going to get, ever.
God, it's like Jerry Springer.
It is. Punch.
Are you calling us white trash from the South, Eric? Is that what you're calling us?
Oh God! Move on quickly, Justin.
Move on. Shall I go on to? Okay. And here we go.
Give me something, baby. What you got for me? Give me something. Goddamn, you want a swimsuit? Shit. Goddamn winter catalog. Gonna have to do. Lady, I'm about to ruin your perfect day. Shit. Scared the piss out of me.
Okay, Erik.
Okay, that one is from the Friday the 13th remake, which I probably hate more than Joseph hates Jason X, if that's possible. That was a scene where the token Joker character decides to settle down and give himself a hand shandy. So he settles down with a box of tissues, and he tries to look for some porn, but the best he can come up with is the winter catalogue of some clothing company. It's just really, really embarrassing. It's lowest common denominator. It doesn't serve any purpose. The story, the film had lost me at that stage anyway. But I mean, if I was with the film at any stage, that would have been pushed me over the edge. It was just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm a fan of Halloween 5, so a film series can jump the shark completely, and I'll still stay with it. But Friday the 13th remake was just ghastly, I thought, and that was one of the main.
You're such a hateful person. I would never trump that kind of hate on any of the movies.
No, fair enough. I mean, are there any fans here of the remake?
Yes, me.
Oh,
of course you are.
I liked it. I thought it was fun.
What, the whole thing? I mean, I liked bits of it. I thought that some of it was quite good. I liked when Jared Padalecki it was quite.
Yeah,
bland,
I was thinking you'd like that bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the first 15 minutes. I like that group of characters, the ones that set up the film. But then it shifts to the other ones, and I didn't like them, and I didn't like the whole Jason takes a hostage thing, or it just felt like a torture porn film almost.
My biggest complaint would probably be him taking a hostage. It seemed kind of weird to me, but I still liked the film overall. I have it on DVD. I need to get it on Blu-ray.
It's not as bad as Jason X, but it is bad.
As bad as Jason X. It's worse than
they're
Jason
both
X.
equally fun.
I would disagree.
I would disagree as well with both of you.
Gosh, right.
Stick it up your nose.
Yeah, there'd be bitch slaps
We're all
flying, wouldn't
disagreeable
there, if we were in the
today.
same. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can't all agree, and it's funny actually, isn't it? Because we're just about to go on to talk about a film that we all love, but it just goes to show there are moments and bits and films actually in the series that perhaps are beyond redemption. So it'd be interesting to hear what you think. But have you got anything else you wanted to say about that, Erik?
No.
No. Okay. Well, Nathan, you have a little bit of a cat coming up, and we've also got a clip coming up shortly after this.
Get up! Shelley, enough is enough!
Okay. Some Oscar-worthy performance there. So why did you pick that as your number 2, Nathan?
Well, that's from part 3, and that's the infamous character of Chili. And I just, there's so much wrong with that scene. Like, for one, even though I love her, her acting leaves a lot to be desired in that scene. And I love the fact that she just found one of her friends dead for real, and she's trying to make her, get away with all the urgency of a turtle. Trying to escape something. I mean, like, she walks up the stairs after finding a dead body. She doesn't run. And they're playing that music. It sounds like a chase scene, like music, but instead it's like her walking. Like, she has no urgency at all to get away,
Yes.
It's probably from all the pot weighing her down.
It could be.
On the Friday the 13th, one of the early incarnations on DVD, there's a commentary on part 3 with Larry Zerner, Paul Kratka, Dana Kimmel, Richard Brooker, and Peter Bracke. And they say, I think I've said this before on the podcast, but they say in that scene, I think it's Rachel is the actress's name. Rachel just wasn't feeling well that day. And they try and gloss over, her performance in that scene.
Yeah, Dana Kimmel, she has a lot of room to talk.
I know. And Paul Kratka.
Yeah, you definitely him.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, she's it's going to be there for all time at that performance, so there's no going back. But that's a great number 2, Nathan. So thank you very much.
I have to say I do love that scene, though.
I do
too. Me too. I love it. It's just there's a lot wrong with it, but that's why I love it.
It's so wrong, it's right.
Exactly. So excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan, and I'm going to play a little bit of. Well, it doesn't give much away, but that is the climax, if you can call it that, of Friday the 13th Part 7. And I just said I do really enjoy that movie. It's not the best movie in the world, but I do still quite enjoy it. What I thought was pretty risible was the ending where Tina's daddy comes out of the lake to pull Jason down. And considering he's been at the bottom of the lake for however 10-15 years, he comes up, he looks like someone's rubbed some coffee granules in his face, and it's just so stupid. It makes no sense at all, and it just kind of really smacked of kind of laziness on part of the script writers. And I've got a feeling actually there was I think there was a different ending, wasn't there, for Friday the 13th Part 7. Was that with the fisherman, wasn't it, when he jumps?
But there was an ending as well where the dad jumps out and he's actually is rotted and looks like he has been at the lake. But I don't know why, but the producers forced the director to put in the coffee granules instead.
Which is bizarre, isn't it? Because the director was, an FX guru.
But if you
himself,
look on the deleted scenes on the DVD, it does show you the ending where the father is more decayed and looking more zombie-like.
Yeah, it just
Maybe
I was going to say maybe they just thought the audience wouldn't realise that it was her father if it came up as a zombie.
That's probably it, actually. Yeah.
So they thought have him pop up as if he's just been down to 7-Eleven and got fell in the puddle. And then jumps up at the end, but
fell in a puddle of coffee granules.
Exactly. So, but any thoughts on that, Nathan?
Oh, actually, I was going to say the same thing you did. But my thoughts on it are: I love Part 7. I think it's probably one of the more underrated Friday the 13th films. It deserves more credit than it gets. And that scene, I agree, is really amusing. It's very funny. It makes no sense. But, that's kind of why I love it, again.
Yeah.
See, I would lean more towards Lar Lincoln's acting, as it were, being the funnier part. But I agree with you as well, in a manner of speaking.
Well, she doesn't have much to work with at the end of that film, does she?
No.
So...
I actually love that film, though. I used to hate it, but watching it on a big screen, it was just great.
Well, no, that's my number 2. So we're moving away now from the cat, but we're getting to possibly the top of the crud. Let's see. This is Joseph's number 1 worst Friday the 13th moment.
All I can remember next is being startled out of sleep by the sound of footsteps. I was sure it was Dad, so I just sat up and I listened for him. But the footsteps stopped. Then there was this cracking noise behind me. I turned around. And standing there was this hideous-looking man. He was so grotesque, he was almost inhuman. He had a knife. And he attacked me with it. I was so hysterical, I don't know how I was even able to think, but I kicked the knife out of his hands and I ran. But he ran after me and he caught me and he pulled me down to the ground. I was kicking and screaming and yelling, but it didn't do any good. He dragged me along the ground. I blacked out. I don't know what happened after that. I just don't know.
Well, yes.
Very emotional.
You go on then, Joseph. Let rip.
I'm sorry. That was from Friday the 13th, Part 3. And that scene is cringeworthy for 2 reasons. One is obviously, okay, I've met Dana Kamau, and she's a very lovely person despite some of the rumors, but let's just say her performance there leaves a little bit to be desired.
She wasn't feeling well that day.
No, she was not. She was not feeling well. But that scene also kind of makes me cringe because it gives off the implication that Jason was trying to rape her, possibly, because he's dragging her on the ground and he was on top of her. And that's not really Jason. I mean, Jason is a murderer. I mean, he's not a rapist. And I always thought that scene kind of gave off that, did he, try to have sex with her? And I don't know, that just kind of bothered me.
No, fair enough, because it's kind of also, what is strange about it is the fact is that she got away from him, because people don't get away from Jason, do they, really?
No, not really.
Especially if they've been dragged to the ground by him, then, but yes, bless her heart, but she was never the best actress, and having a monologue like that, it was probably not a good idea for old Dana, but yeah. What about you guys, Erik and Nathan? What did you think of Dana's performance?
Well, it's weak, let's be honest, but I think it's one of the many charms of Part 3. So I wouldn't call it cringeworthy, I just call it entertaining.
Well, I think there is a kind of duality here, or if that's the right word, for a lot of the stuff we're talking about here. Maybe obviously not the snake, but obviously a lot of the other bits, they may be not fantastic, but they are usually quite entertaining on a different level, and obviously this, and like with Chili's, death scene that Nathan picked, they are kind of very entertaining. What about you, Nathan? What did you think of Dana?
I agree with Erik.
Erik? Oh, yes. How French. Okay.
It's like a fancy version of Eric's name.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's very continental.
It's like the French version of Jason was Jacques or Jason.
It was Jacques in part 1 and Jason in part 2. Yeah.
Jason.
I can't look up their
Jacques.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph. What we've got next is Erik's numero uno. No, that would be, what would be the French for that?
Something. I don't know what number is.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you can see. Yeah, we're obviously very cultured on this show. So here's your number one.
Oh, you want your machete back? Shit, it's yours. Take it. Just remember who saved it for you. Guys, it's okay. He just wanted his machete back. Woo!
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, Joseph stole my thunder really on this one, but I mean, I don't hate Jason X as much as he does, but I do agree completely 100% that the moments of humor are so horrible. And like there are many moments, like the one you picked, Joseph. There's also the one where the woman is being sucked out of the airlock or something, and she says, "Oh, this sucks on so many levels." And that one where, "Oh, he just wants his machete back." It's like, oh, this isn't a Police Academy film. It's just the as you were saying, Justin, if they'd kept it on a playful tone, but not veer that much into sort of slapstick and lowbrow comedy, it could have been a half decent film. I mean, I still think it's better than Jason Goes to Hell. But I do agree it's actually better than the remake, but that's damning with faint praise. I just think the humor absolutely destroys any chance that film ever had of being entertaining, in my opinion.
Okay, interesting. But Nathan, you're, like you said before, you kind of you're a bit fonder of the film, aren't you?
Yes, I really enjoy it.
Okay.
I think there are moments, and I do like the I mean, I know Joseph doesn't, but I like the holograph scene where they go on the holographic trip back to 1980. I think that's quite fun.
To be fair, there's one moment in Jason X I like. It's when he freezes the girl's head and he bashes it on the thing.
That is really good, and I like the opening.
That's a great scene, but that's it. The rest of the movie can go fuck itself.
Well, I quite like the opening with David Cronenberg and that. I think it shows a lot of promise. But then the film just veers too much into this stupid comedy that it's just horrible.
See, that's one of the reasons why I thought, not to get off on a big tangent here, but that's one of the reasons why I didn't really care for the My Bloody Valentine remake, because Todd Farmer, his humor just really irritates me.
I didn't find it as it didn't stick out as much for me in the My Bloody Valentine remake.
It wasn't as bad as Jason X, but it was kind of there, and I think that soured me on that as well.
Weren't they supposed to?
I liked it.
Of course you did. You like everything.
Well, talking of Todd Farmer sticking out, weren't they talking about having his 3D shot of his penis? I seem to remember from
My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah,
we get his bum in 3D.
You get his bum, but I think they were talking because they obviously had the woman, didn't they, running around buck naked?
Well, she had stilettos on.
She did, yeah, fair enough, to be fair. But I think they were talking, I don't know if he was just joking, but they were sort of saying about potentially having little Todd poking out of the screen. But that didn't happen. So, well, thank you for that, Erik. Nathan, we don't have a clip for you.
You're welcome, Justin.
Justin.
Yeah, whatever. Yes.
I prefer to go by Nathan from now on, please.
Okay.
And
what actually? Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say I don't have a clip because it's really the whole movie, and it's Jason Goes to Hell. It's one big cringe-worthy moment because it's my least favorite Friday the 13th film out of all of them. And it's just because whose bright idea was it to kill Jason in the first, 5-10 minutes, and then the whole rest of the movie, it's like possession, like people being possessed by him and killing, that's just stupid. That's not a Friday the 13th movie, and that was a stupid idea, and whoever had that idea should have made their own movie. You know,
they did. It's called The Hidden.
Well, they should not have dragged Jason into it. They ruined the Friday the 13th series by doing all that. It's just, it's really stupid. And I don't, taking it out of Friday the 13th, I actually think it's an okay movie. Not really great, but okay. But in the Friday the 13th series, it doesn't fit, and it's really bad, and I don't like that.
I think we'd probably, I would definitely agree with that, because it was strange, wasn't it? Kind of to reboot the movie, 4 years after the last film, to do that. It's a very strange move, wasn't it? New line.
My problem with the film is, I agree with Nathan, but my problem with the film is that it's called Jason Goes to Hell. It should be Jason in Hell. It shouldn't be a possession movie and then Jason getting dragged to hell at the last 5 seconds. I mean, Jason in Hell would be a great idea, I think.
But you know what happens when we say we don't like Jason Goes to Hell or we don't like Jason X, people are all like, "Oh, you just want the same thing over and over again." Blah, 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 blah. Now I don't mind.
The same thing works for me. If it works for me,
it works for me as well. But I don't mind if they go off on tangents if they work. But anytime they've veered off like Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, it's just been a disaster.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me.
Okay, well that's interesting. Nathan, have you got anything else you wanted to say about the misfire that is Jason?
I just want to say, if anybody accuses me of just wanting the same thing over and over, then that's okay, because I agree with it. Parts 1 through 7 was Jason in the woods killing horny teenagers. That's all I want. So all the movies should just be that, and I don't want anything different. If you want something different, then watch The Hidden, like Joseph said.
I would agree.
And it's a good movie.
Jason belongs
or Pretty Woman
in the woods.
Or Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
Walking down the street.
No, I would agree with Nathan, though. One of the things the reason I love the first 4 Fridays more than the others is just that they are all sort of very similar.
Well,
Jason belongs in the forest.
He does. He fits there.
Okay, right. Well, yes, lots to talk about there. And this is my number one. This is the last of the worst Friday the 13th moments, or in this case, characters.
You think I don't know what those 2 perverts were doing in my yard?
Say it like you mean it, Ma.
Would you shut the fuck up?
Right, I know.
You're going to face opposition on this one.
I quit. I'm out of here. Bye.
Well, don't hit your ass on the way out, love.
Ooh.
No, the reason I am conflicted with Friday the 13th Part 5, actually, to take that audio clip, I went to get my copy of the film, and it was still shrink-wrapped, and I think that says quite a lot about my relationship with the film. Obviously, I've seen it quite a few times over the years, and there's certainly lots in it that I do enjoy, but I do think that the characters of Ethel and Junior were the moment where the Friday the 13th series jumped the shark, as far as I'm concerned. If you just measure it back against all the other films, even with the limitations of Chili and Dana Kimmel, and certainly compared to Friday the 13th Part 2, Part 5 is a very different film, and there's great bits in it, but for some reason I just can't, apart from the fact obviously Jason's not actually in it for a start. But that doesn't bother me so much. I didn't mind the fact that they try something different, and I think that kind of works, that whole kind of mystery aspect to the Part 5. But I thought Ethel and Junior's characters I can understand why people would like them, but to me, it was a moment where the series jumped the shark. It's just too broad. It's too, too much like parody, and it kind of took me out. It was a moment where the series switched into something different. I think it switched back with Part 6 and Part 7 to some degree, but it kind of it hinted to me that the makers didn't really, not necessarily respect the material, but they'd given up even trying to take it seriously, and that kind of bothered me. So yeah, they would go into my dustbin of Friday the 13th is Ethel and Junior.
I can see where you're coming from, but the reason why I love Friday the 13th Part 5 so much is it just feels like it's a big, like, Coke binge movie where the people behind it were like, just high off their gourd. And so then they're like, okay, we're so high, let's go make a Friday the 13th film. And then we got that, and it's just so deliriously entertaining. And I don't know, I like their characters. They're so over the top and just stupid. And in the moment they actually get killed, it's just so cathartic almost.
No, fair enough. I can understand, where you're coming from with that. It's just, and I do owe it to myself and to the film to rewatch it again.
You better, because it's going to be picked by me.
Yes, but not for a little while yet. But how about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts on those characters?
Oh, I love those characters. I love all the characters because Friday the 13th Part 5 is my second favorite Friday the 13th movie.
Mine too. Well, it's my favorite, sort of. It's tied with Part 2.
Yeah, my favorite's Part 2, and then Part 5 is my second favorite because it's so awesome, I guess. I guess I can't say anything else.
Okay, what about you, Erik?
Well, it wouldn't be my second favorite by a long shot, but I do really like it. It'd be my fifth favorite after the first four, I suppose. I do agree that there's a complete change in the tone of the films from Part 5 onwards. And I hated Part 5 when I saw it first, but it did really grow on me, and I love it now. I think it, as Joseph says, is a bit of a, I suppose you could call it a train wreck of a movie. It just seems so thrown together in 5 minutes. There's just something very engaging about it. I can't.
It's so likable.
I can't pinpoint why, but it's a movie that's so bad it's good, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, that's it.
And I know. I mean, Joseph, we were discussing before, months ago about movies you've done a complete 180 degree on, and Part 5 is one I used to hate, but now I really like, and Part 6 was one I used to really love, but now. Probably because I watched it too much when I was younger, I find it's a bit tedious. But I do love Part 5. Sorry, and I do love Ethel and Junior.
Well, I'm quite happy to be the lone voice of sanity, but I'm also I'm happy to go back and watch the film again, and I'm more than happy for my opinion on it to change. Which who knows, it could happen.
When you see Tiffany Helm doing her breakdancing, that'll win you over surely, if nothing else.
And if it doesn't, then you're not human.
Yeah,
and you have an axe.
Yeah,
and I'm going to grind it. So, well, there you go, and that is our top 3 worst Friday 13th moments, characters, or scenes, or whatever from the series. But we are going to go on to what many people regard as possibly the best of the Friday 13th films, Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back to camp, here's even more heart-pounding terror. 5 years after the horrible bloodbath at Camp Crystal Lake, all that remains is the legend of Jason Voorhees and his demented mother. At a nearby summer camp, the new counselors are unconcerned about the warnings to stay away from the infamous site. Carefree, the young people roam the area, not sensing the ominous lurking presence. One by one, they are attacked and brutally slaughtered. Many people consider Friday the 13th Part 2 to be on par with the original Friday the 13th, if not better. I'm of the opinion that it improves upon the suspense factor, but it's not as deliciously gory as its predecessor. Perhaps an uncut copy, should it ever surface, will trump Tom Savini's effects previous, but until then, Friday the 13th Part 2 relies more on its sense of campfire folklore to tell a more compelling, in my opinion, story about a grown man-child wearing a pillowcase over his deformed noggin, systematically bumping off nubile camp ne'er-do-wells one by one. Whereas the first film is a bit of a cheat in who's doing the killings and why. This one abandons the clunky whodunit narrative and makes it fairly clear early on that Jason has indeed returned from that murky lake and is wreaking havoc upon the campgrounds. It's altogether a scarier film, I think, than the first, and I think the rain-soaked atmosphere is heightened, and you're never quite sure when Jason will strike. Prior to getting his infamous goalie mask, Jason's cloth-like visage here is infinitely more terrifying than what would follow. And I like that he's not yet a hulking pseudo-zombie, but a crazed backwoodsman following the voice of his mother in his head. On top of that, I think Amy Still's Jenny character makes for a far more rousing final girl. And the bit where she tries to use psychological trickery on Jason is truly a classic moment from the series. While Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, is my favorite of the series on an entertainment level, this entry trumps the rest as far as pure thrills and atmosphere is concerned. I obviously have a lot more to say about it, but for now, I'll turn it over to Erik.
Okay, well, surprisingly, Part 2 was a film I was disappointed with when I saw it first. And we're talking here about 1987 or 1988. At that stage, I'd seen Part 6, Part 4, and Part 1 in that order. So when it came to Part 2, I thought it was missing the visceral impact, as you say, of the effects. Because certainly Parts 1 and 4 are quite gory. Part 6, whilst not as gory, had very inventive deaths, I suppose. And then Part 2, when I saw Part 2, I felt sort of let down that sort of the punchline from all the stalking sequences was sort of removed. But I've completely gone the opposite direction now. I absolutely adore Part 2. And I think it's no coincidence that while many consider it the best in the series, it's also the sort of the leanest. I mean, it's a brisk 80 minutes. I think that makes it the shortest of the Friday series. I could be mistaken, but I think it is. And what I think has happened here is that Steve Miner has distilled the slasher down into its purest form. Like once you have the recap at the start with Alice's nightmare over with and the opening credits have rolled, you have only 70 minutes of a movie left. And I think that works in the film's favour. And in the first one, there was this long sequence of Alice making a cup of tea, which really dragged, I thought. And then, you know, scenes where they're just sitting around playing strip Monopoly, that's all been eliminated, and he's sort of smoothed out the rough edges from Part 1, and it's a much slicker movie. And as you say, it's more probably atmospheric. It's got more subtlety to it. I mean, those scenes where we see Jason's shadow, we just see him as a shadowy presence for a lot of the film, are just close-ups of his feet, which I know in certain reviews I've read, they complain about that, but I think that adds to sort of the mystery factor of the film. I also love the setting. I think it's incredibly picturesque during the daytime sequences, and it really feels summery, even though I know it was filmed in sort of late autumn. It really feels, it has that real summer camp feel, and it's interesting that we think that the Friday the 13th film is synonymous with summer camp, you know, slasher mayhem, when in actual fact only Parts 1, 2 and 6 are set at a summer camp. The rest of them are set in houses that are sort of near Camp Crystal Lake. I think it's also blessed with a really good cast on this occasion, particularly Amy Steele. I mean, we don't need to say any more about her. She's absolutely fantastic as the final girl. Onto the effects, I think even in the brief glimpses we get of the special effects in Part 2, I still think Carl Fullerton's work on it is far superior to Tom Savini's, which may sound controversial, but I think if we saw an uncut version of Part 2, I think it would, people would be saying, "Oh, Erik, you were so right," which is, something I hear a lot actually. On the downside, the one scene that I don't like is the scene where Ginny wets herself under the bed. I thought that was kind of unnecessary. I know they're not playing it for laughs, but it just comes across as being quite stupid. But it is a film I really, really love, and it's astonishing how good it is, considering how rushed it must have been, because the original Friday the 13th came out in June of 1980, and this was in production in the September. So the script and the casting and everything must have been prepared in like record fast time. So, kudos to everyone involved. They made such a good film.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one point where she urinates under the bed, because I think it adds a touch of humanity to her character. I mean, she's already pretty human, but, the fact that she's that scared and she ends up relieving herself because of it.
Yeah, I know, but would her genes not absorb the urine? I mean, it seems to be flooding out.
Maybe they were like Jordache and not like Levi's, so the material wasn't as good.
Okay, maybe you're right then. Yeah.
But we'll get onto that whole pee scene later, because there's a big debate about that that's reigned forever. But for now, how about how about you, Nathan? What do you think of Friday the 13th Part 2?
Well, it's my favorite in the entire series. I think it's awesome. I mean, you guys know I love Amy Steele for obvious reasons. I've already blathered on about that many, many times, so I'm not going to go into it again, except that she's amazing. I've always loved her character in this movie, and I've always loved the movie. I love it's got my favorite death scene, too, when Mark, the guy in the wheelchair, gets hit in the face with the machete and his wheelchair, goes backwards down those steps. I thought that was a really awesome scene, kind of creepy. I really enjoyed it. I think Ginny and Jason's scene at the end where they're both, have that big chase scene. I thought that was really, interesting. And, I guess, I don't know, I'm kind of torn on the whole pee scene. I get where both Erik and Joseph are coming from with that. I love the window scare. I think that was really well done. I watched it. I was with Greg one night, and I think this is before you started coming over, Joseph. And we watched it with his sister-in-law and one of her friends and his brother. And when Jason jumped through the window, they screamed so loud it scared me.
I think I was there that night.
I just know they screamed, and it scared me. They screamed so loud. So I thought it's really fun to watch movies with people like that get that into it and scream and stuff. I think that's a lot of fun. Let's see. And I have two more points to bring up. The first one is Lauren Marie Taylor's character. What is up with the underwear that she wants to change into? Are those supposed to be sexy? Because I thought they were pretty
brown,
bad.
aren't they?
Yes.
In 1981.
That's not a color you want your underwear to be, unless you something.
My flatmate was watching this film with me when I was watching it the other night, and she had a very crude reason why. I don't know if you want to hear it.
I think I already have an idea of what you were going to say.
It's her response was, well, maybe like she's putting them on so that if she soils herself, it'll be less noticeable.
I knew it.
Yeah, she's trying to hide something. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yes, I would agree.
And I think one major point for this film is the scenes that we are left to interpret. Like at the beginning, when I believe Jason and Alice are having a simultaneous dream sequence in which he kills Alice, which obviously is not real. They were both having I think they had like a psychic link with each other ever since he pulled her into the water. So they kind of have this psychic thing that when, he killed her, he actually was killing someone that looked like her. So, he didn't really kill Alice. He was just, in his mind, that's his ultimate wish. So they kind of have a psychic thing going on. That's why she's so tormented and constantly having nightmares, because yet again, that was just another nightmare that she had. And I think that was very important to the series.
I don't know if I'd agree with you there, but interesting theory.
That is the ultimate theory.
Those unflattering dungarees she wears surely have to be the product of a nightmare.
Exactly. Everything about that is nightmarish. So, there's no way that scene was real.
But how do you explain, we've spoken about this before, I think, but how do you explain, Nathan, Alice's body at the Mrs. Voorhees altar at the end of part 2?
It wasn't Alice's body, he killed a lookalike because, there's no way he's going to really find Alice. For all we can tell by Jason, he's never been out of Camp Crystal Lake, and I assume Alice isn't living next door to it. So I'm thinking that, he killed someone nearby that happened to look like Alice and put her body near the altar. And that's why he and Alice had that psychic dream sequence, that's kind of combined with each other, because he thinks he really killed her, but he didn't.
But the body by the altar's got the screwdriver through the head, isn't it? Or the pickaxe.
Well, yeah, he's killed many people using that method, probably.
Yeah, so that's just another way he's killed a random woman thinking she was Alice.
But in the novelization of the film, it explains how he found Alice because she went back to Camp Crystal Lake to and visited the areas to try and get closure, and Jason followed her back. That's what the novel says.
That's just a novelization, not to be taken seriously.
I don't think Nathan's going to step down in this.
No, but also that she says when her mom phones, she says, "This is the only way I know how to deal with this," which I think kind of leads back to her going back to Crystal Lake to try and get over what's happened. So
no, I think it means that she left a mental institution and she's back home now.
Okay, well, I think we'll agree to disagree on that because personally, I feel that Alice is dead and he killed her, and he's taken her body back to his mom's altar.
But I met her. I met her in person.
Yeah, that's the actress.
So did I. So now I'm on Nathan's.
So we even talked to her. She's alive.
She ain't alive.
But we talked to her.
Okay, well, I think we'll disagree. But what do you think? If you're listening to this, why don't you let us know? Do you think Alice is still alive? I know that Adrian King is of the mind that Alice is still alive, but I don't think she is. But I think
is Alice alive, or is Nathan doomed to lead a life of total crackpotdom?
I'm telling you, I can't step down from this theory, and I never will. I have to believe that she's alive. It's very important to me. Why can't you give me this?
Fine, take it.
At least
you have anything else to say about the movie?
Just that it's awesome. No matter what we think about Alice and that situation, it's an awesome movie regardless.
All right. What about you, Justine?
Well, yes, I do. I do love this film. I mean, it's a toss-up between this and the first film, and they kind of oscillate between which ones I prefer more. I love it, and I love the trailer. I think is probably the best slasher movie trailer there is.
With Don LaFontaine, I love him.
It just sums up everything that's fantastic. I mean, part of the reason it got so criticised when it came out, we'll go into that, I'm sure, a little bit later. But one of the things that the critics hated was that the filmmakers had essentially chosen that kind of the body count to saying it's continuing, and the fact is it's boiled it right down to that element, that kind of very basic element of the horror movie. And the critics really hated that, but I think for the slasher movie that kind of works perfectly. I think it works really, really well. I really like, I love the film, and I think it essentially is a kind of remake of the first film in a lot of ways. But I think Steve Miner is better at creating suspense. What's curious actually about the Carl Fullerton sort of whole debate and about how much was cut out of the movie was because I think, Erik was touching on about how quickly the film came together, but I think they tried to get Tom Savini to come back, and there's kind of, basically different versions of why he didn't come back. And then they tried to get Stan Winston, I believe, who actually, I think he helped create Mrs. Voorhees' head. I'm not sure if it's the one in the fridge or the one at the end. But the thing that I didn't really understand, I don't know what your thoughts on this are, and we'll come to the making of a little bit later, more on, but just what it occurs to me is that, famously Part 2 had lots of cut out, but then actually when you watch the film, there's only, maybe 2 or 3 deaths, well, maybe 3 or 4, that are actually particularly graphic, but quite a few of the deaths are kind of off-screen, aren't they, or off-camera. Lauren Marie Taylor's death, it doesn't look like there's a gorier version of that. It wasn't. What's her name? I can't remember her name now. Terry, yeah, her death is off screen completely. So was there somewhere kind of really gory death scenes for these characters, or were they always meant to be slightly off screen? And I know we had in the original film, you did have a couple of off screen deaths. But yeah, I just wondered, how much gorier those scenes would have been. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I've always wondered about the Terry murder, because all she does is she faces the camera as if she's seen Jason and she screams, and then it cuts to the bar. I've always wondered if there was something missing there, or if it was always meant to be off camera.
Well, it's kind of like Lisa Langoy, or however you pronounce her name. Her death scene in Happy Birthday to Me is completely missing, isn't it? Because it was filmed, she says, with her being axed to death in a quite gory fashion, and that's completely removed from the film, and no one's ever seen that. So it's not beyond the realm of reason that there was a death scene shot for Terry, but I imagine that would have come out by now, wouldn't it? She would have talked about it at conventions and stuff. So. But as far as the rest of the film, I mean, I really like it. I mean, a couple of things that occurred to me was this is probably the only film, and I know Nathan thinks it's a dream sequence, and but if it wasn't, this is probably the only film that Jason actually uses a phone, isn't it? Because he phones Alice at the beginning, and with the silent phone call. I mean, in some ways, the Friday the 13th Part 2 is kind of the melting pot, isn't it, for the rest of the series, because Jason's not really fully formed, is he? Because throughout the film, he's very clumsy, isn't he? It's almost like, the slasher movie Mr. Bean or something, or Frank Spencer. He just kept, falling off things when he's on that stool, when he's above the bed, when Ginny's under the bed. He kind of, the chair collapses and he keeps on falling over and missing her and all these kind of things. So he's not exactly, he hasn't become that kind of cold, calculated killing machine that he does in, say, Part 3 onwards. But again, it's kind of, you've got, I do love that whole, the classic campfire thing, which you didn't have in the first film. But of course, it became like de rigueur, didn't it, in like Madman and The Burning, to have that campfire scene. And of course, Friday the 13th Part 2 was being made pretty much at the same time as The Burning. So I really like that. And of course, you have almost identical things. I think, is it almost identical in all the films, isn't it? Or somebody jumps out and gives everyone a scare at the end of the ghost story. So you have that, and I think you have a similar thing, don't you, in Final Terror, and a lot of these films employ that, and it works really, really well here. I thought of Erik when there was that sign. Well, when on Amy Steele's mirror, it was written "Beware of the bears."
Yeah,
and I wondered which bears he was. Maybe he was saying your ilk, Erik.
I'm not sure. Oh,
somebody buzzing.
Once in a text message.
Because Paul says at one stage bears are dangerous, and I mean, I know for a fact that that's not always true.
No, exactly. But we don't see any bears. Don't see any bears in the film. I love Amy Steele. I think she's great. I mean, she's quite a complex character in some ways, because there are no complex characters in the Friday the 13th movies, but she's almost. I like her. She's very personable, but there's quite a hard edge to her, isn't there? She's a bit no-nonsense in some ways, and she's kind of, there's that kind of dated kind of dialogue where she's talking about, Jason, the poor retard kind of, thing going on. And obviously she's using her psychology major, or, what she's studying for, which, of course, at the end of the film, as if you've seen it, she fools Jason into thinking that she's Mrs. Voorhees. But again, she's. I love the scene when she grabs the chainsaw, which is kind of a scene that was kind of recreated to lesser degree, wasn't it, in Part 5 with is it Melanie Kinnaman or at the end of Part 5? But I was watching it again today, and I don't know if I've only got the Blu-ray, but I'm not sure if it's the same on. Sorry, I've only got the DVD. I'm not sure it's the same on the Blu-ray. But the grain, it's a very grainy film. Which I like, but it has that kind of grittiness to it, I think, especially in the nighttime scenes where everything, has that real kind of grain throughout it. And but yeah, it's a film that I love, can watch endlessly. I'm probably in danger of watching it too much, because I think it's almost like a pair of old slippers. I can pop it on and just go off and do other things, and check my email and not necessarily pay that much attention to it because I know it by heart. But I was watching it today and doing some research for the film, and I kept on coming back and watching it, and just it's a great film, and very possibly is my favourite film in the series.
Well, we were speaking about the scene where she uses psychological trickery to fool Jason into thinking that she's his mother. They ripped that scene off in Humongous, which we covered not too long ago. You do remember that, don't you?
Yes.
I do, yes.
I don't.
You don't remember that in Humongous? At the very end where she's in that room.
I'm really sorry to fans of Humongous. Like, I remember liking it well enough when I watched it, but it's one of those movies I can never remember after I've seen it.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't remember it.
I don't think it's a very good film. I mean, it's well made, but it's just kind of boring. But yeah, she does the exact same thing where she goes into that room and she puts that sweater on, and then the killer opens the door, and she's like, she's trying to use that psychological, mind fuckery on him. And it's just like Friday the 13th Part 2. And that, yeah.
Okay, well.
But Amy still did it first and the best.
Yes.
Are we going to mention the comparisons between it and Bay of Blood?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's only, there's two moments in the film that are, you can put, side by side with Bay of Blood. I don't think
one's obviously the spear.
Yeah,
through the
to me, that's the main one. It's the spear scene,
and the machete across the face. There's a similar scene in Bay of Blood where somebody I think it's a meat cleaver. Or no, it's some.
It's debatable whether or not Steve Miner was influenced by Bay of Blood. I mean, he probably was. I mean, does anyone else know if he'd seen it?
I think they've always said that they hadn't seen it. But of course, I mean, Steve Miner was kind of remaking essentially Friday the 13th, which of course borrows the lakeside setting from Bay of Blood. But just having a lake. I mean, the thing is, Mary Bava's Bay of Blood. It's very much kind of sets the kind of, in some ways, a proto-slasher prototype of, having a lakeside with lots of murders happening around it, and then imports the kind of the horny teenagers in their dune buggy which turn up and they get killed off one by one. But that's only a small part of the film, isn't it? And it could be a happy accident, perhaps, that the film had nothing to do with that, the first film. But yes, I think it's a little bit too much for coincidence. The spear through the back, but you don't know how these things happen, do you? Because again, the person who wrote the script may have seen it. Steve Miner may not have done and thought, "Oh, that's a good idea," or someone just mentioned it as a throwaway comment. But I think the film stands on its own. And to be honest, as much as I love Mario Bava films, if I had a choice between watching Bay of Blood and Friday the 13th Part 2 for an evening, I'd probably plump for Friday the 13th Part 2 most times.
Oh, I definitely agree with you.
Definitely.
Yes, me too.
I love Bay of Blood, don't get me wrong. I think it's a fantastic film, but Friday the 13th Part 2 is just miles above it, I'd say.
It's got yeah. I mean, I also like the what's interesting about the film is you've got, well, not interesting necessarily, and I do wonder why they did this, but they introduced several characters. I noticed there was the token black character in there, wasn't there? But didn't have the person didn't have any lines. But you had the Joker character, didn't you? Who doesn't die, which is
he survives, which is it's very odd.
Yeah.
But in the novelization, does he not get killed, or he features after the bar scene in the novelization? I think. Okay. I don't know. I haven't read it, but I think doesn't he come back to the camp after his night out?
I don't know. To be honest, I've never read the novel version of it when I was doing some research, I sort of heard about the scenes where Alice goes back to the lake to try and confront her fears. But yes, I mean that may well be the case. And
that's always it sort of stood out to me, the fact that Ted is built up as a major character, and major characters in Friday the 13th either are victims or they turn up at the end to save the day or something like that. And he doesn't either. He just sort of disappears from the film quite abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's some controversy, wasn't there, with people disappearing from the film, which I'm sure we'll cover, a little bit later. But I mean, is it a kind of good time to perhaps stop for the Russell Todd interview, and then we can come back and talk about the film a bit more detail afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
This is just to preface the interview. The reason I say I got your name right at the start of this interview is because when I was talking to him about Chopping Mall, I accidentally called him Scott at the start. So, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, here's Erik's interview with Russell Todd.
Hi, Tara. Do you want to dance?
No, thank you.
Hi there. How about you? Do you want to dance?
Okay, once again, I am delighted to be joined by Russell Todd, and today we are going to be talking to him about Friday the 13th Part 2. Good morning to you again, Russell.
Hey there, Eric.
How are you? I got your name right this time. when you were cast in Friday the 13th Part 2, I know that it was very soon after the first one had been released. Were you aware of the phenomenon or the success of the first film?
I was aware of the success of Friday the 13th. In fact, I saw it and I thought, wow, this, I enjoyed it like everyone else. I was a big fan. So when I had the opportunity to read and be cast in Part 2, I thought, oh, this is it. I'm on the way. I've made it.
And when you read the script, did it say that you were going to be hung upside down from a tree exactly like the way that you are killed in He Knows You're Alone?
Yes, I knew that the character would be. And I thought, oh, this is very funny. What a coincidence. I can do this. I know how to do this. I can hang well.
Did health and safety ever come into the fray on Friday the 13th Part 2, or indeed He Knows You're Alone? Because I was looking up on the internet, and in fact, it can be quite dangerous hanging upside down for long periods because it can involve blood clots and your lungs filling with blood and stuff.
Isn't it funny they never mentioned that to me before shooting that scene?
Of course. And how long? Can you remember how long you were hanging upside down for?
It probably was under an hour, the very, very most. And there was someone, they strung me up, and of course I had tubing going there's a guy in the tree above me, and they had tubing running through my leg, through my shirt, to the prosthetic over my neck, which had been pre-cut, because they wanted it to open easily when Jason took the knife across my throat, the machete, and I would lean my head back, and then they would pump the blood. But there was a guy in between, while they were rigging me up, there was a guy kind of holding me up from my back, so I wasn't fully hanging down. I was a little inverted. I guess to stop the blood from rushing to my head. But I think the whole thing took about an hour, the very, very most. And we did it in one take. We had to, because once the blood started flowing, it was all over the clothing and my face and into my eyes. In fact, I think in the actual film they cut it.
They do.
Much sooner.
It's famous for being quite a censored film in general. So your death was quite bloody in the initial cut of the film, I suppose, was it?
Yes, it was. And then they had to stop at some point because once it got into my eyes, they couldn't roll any longer. But I guess the big thing about that scene is people always talk about the blade. They use the dull side of the blade.
Yes, yeah.
Cutting into my throat, I guess perhaps for safety, or maybe it was just by mistake. I don't know.
Was it a real machete? Can you remember?
It was a real machete, yeah. I think it did have a sharp side, but I think, for safety, they probably just used the dull side. And again, I was pre-cut anyway. All I had to do was lean my head back, and they started pumping the blood. Funny thing about that, they shot, most movies are shot out of sequence, but my last work day was my death. And I remember calling my parents, telling them it was my last day, and they said, well, what are you shooting? I said, my death scene. They said, Russell. I said, what? They said, why would they save your death for the end? I said, it's just the way the schedule worked out. They go, are you sure this isn't a snuff film? I said, Mom, it's Paramount Pictures. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. Well, you wonder. And did your parents go see the premiere then?
They did, yes. And they loved it. They had a good time, although they did say it was very difficult watching me die.
That's why I always wonder, yeah. Yeah. And they did enjoy the film, though, yeah?
They did, yes. They got a kick out of it. Yeah, they were my biggest fans.
Well, you play quite not sleazy as such, but you play kind of a character who's a bit lecherous, shall we say, especially towards Kristen Baker, is it?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, with your slingshot on your pebble.
You have to get their attention somehow.
Yeah, well, it's as good a way as any, I think. Yeah.
But you do learn a lesson in all of these movies, especially Friday the 13th Part 2.
That's not the way to a woman's heart, is the lesson.
Yeah.
Or stealing her clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a price to be paid.
Yeah. What was it like working with Steve Miner? Because this was his first directorial outing.
Steve was great. He was full of energy. I remember that. He was, he motivated all of us with that energy and was very friendly. As you said, it was his first, and so he was, probably a bit nervous himself and excited. But I think he did a terrific job, and we stayed friends for a little while after that. I've lost touch recently, but I'm sure he's doing good things.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's had great success since, because he did Part 3 as well, and then went on to do sort of more mainstream Hollywood films.
Yeah. Didn't he have something by the lake, or something like that? Another picture set on a lake.
Lake Placid, was it? He did.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, I believe so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
but
a good man, really good, and
he's an excellent director, particularly in Part 2. I mean, one of the reasons it's our favorite is because it copies the formula of Part 1, but it's directed with so much more style.
Yes, I agree. It's interesting. A lot of people come up to me and say their favorite of the series is Part 2, and I think that's fantastic.
I think it's the general consensus.
So many.
Yeah. Have you stayed in touch with any of the cast and crew from Friday the 13th Part 2?
I still see Amy Steele and John Fury when I go to these signings, and Warrington Gillette and Stu Charno. They're the ones I see the most at the fan signings, and they're a great group. Amy and John live here, of course, in L.A., but I'm not sure if Stu does or not. He must. I think he does.
And Stu
it's always nice running into that.
Yeah, Stu would be a great person to get on the podcast. He has a horror pedigree as well. He appeared in Christine, of course, and he was in X-Files, a few other films.
Yeah.
And his character in Friday the 13th Part 2 is quite distinctive as well.
Yes. Yeah. Stu's an interesting character. He's a good guy. Very interesting. Very funny.
Yeah. Have you seen Friday the 13th Part 2 recently at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to see it on the big screen just a few weeks ago, and I hadn't seen it on the big screen since the premiere. They were screening it in Hollywood. They do a festival at midnight. They do various shows. In fact, they did Shopping Mall, as I think you know. Kelly was there, I believe.
Yeah,
Tony.
Kelly and Jim were there, yeah.
And Jim, yeah. And it was just terrific to see it that large again. And I went with a couple of friends. In fact, I don't know if you know who Peter Bracke is.
I do, yes. He wrote the book Crystal Lake Memories.
Definitive book.
Yeah.
on all the Fridays, and I sat with Peter and had a lot of laughs watching it. Brought back a lot of great memories.
Can I ask, as somebody who doesn't really know much about the film industry, do actors get kind of a royalty for sales of films that they appear in, if that DVD is sold?
Yes, residuals continue. In fact, on Friday the 13th Part 2, it's funny, it's come down to being the same amount of money, and I get it every year from Paramount, sent through the Screen Actors Guild. And it doesn't, on many projects, it kind of like whittles down and eventually you're into pennies, but this has kind of stayed, it is the exact same number every year.
I'll explain why, because there's probably people like me all over the world. I have, in various incarnations, owned 6 copies of Friday the 13th Part 2, twice on VHS, 3 times on DVD, and then once on Blu-ray.
But I need to thank you.
Yeah, I probably bought your house.
Oh no, trust me, it's not that good. No, we're not talking a lot.
Yes,
from this film. Yeah. There's more to be made on other projects. If you do a big budget film that brings in millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, your residuals are amazing, but otherwise they're really not. But the longevity is nice. It's in perpetuity.
Yeah.
I'll see these for the rest of my life coming out off.
Are you surprised by the longevity of, the 3 horror films you were in, and particularly Friday the 13th Part 2?
I was at first. Now I get it. It's just, there's something about that series that just captures people, and I just think it's fantastic. At first, I couldn't understand it. I thought, well, it's just another horror film. But I get it when you look, the totality of all of them. Those, some are better than others. But I get it, and I'm just really proud and happy to be part of this franchise. And I loved it when I did it, and I love it today.
Well, you're a very distinctive part of the franchise, because I think your death scene is recapped at the start of Part 4 and possibly Part 7.
I know Part 4, yes. In fact, I was in a feud with Paramount for over a year to prove I was actually in that, even though my face is visible.
Probably not Part 7.
I didn't realize.
No, probably not Part 7. Then I'm just going off the top
Part
of my
4,
head.
I believe they did use a number of deaths in the opening. Yeah.
More or less all of them, I think.
Maybe.
Were you in any way jealous of anyone else's death scenes in Friday the 13th Part 2? Would you like to have swapped with anyone?
That's interesting. No, I kind of liked mine. Yeah. I thought it was terrific. There's always someone getting stabbed in a bed in other films. And I guess I have to say someone, getting their throat slit hanging upside down, because that happened to me in another film.
Yes.
So, but no, I was very happy to have that scene. And but I thought the other ones were equally as gory and cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, Russell, on behalf of the Hysteria Continues, can I thank you for hanging upside down from a tree in not 1 but 2 movies 30 years ago, and being part of films that are very dear to our hearts.
It's my pleasure indeed, Erik. I was thrilled to be in both of those films, and thank you so much for having me on your show, and for all the fans out there that continue to watch these pictures and enjoy them. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks much. I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason.
Okay, that was Russell Todd talking to me last summer, so that's 12 months old, but I think he's still alive and well, and thank you very much, Russell, for that.
Yes, thank you, Russell. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about the background for the movie. And I know a lot of you have been waiting with bated breath, because it's been all over the internet and all over the Friday the 13th communities. About
it's been on Sky News as well, I think.
It's been on Sky News. It's been everywhere that Erik spotted something in Friday the 13th Part 2 that no one else has spotted.
Yes.
And this is going to blow your mind, isn't it, Erik?
It's totally going to blow your mind, but I've spotted a blooper in Friday the 13th Part 2 that I couldn't find referenced anywhere on any of the sites.
It's not on IMDb, is it? It's not on
Sorry?
The bloopers. It's not on IMDb on the bloopers.
No, and it's not on. I had a look at some of the Friday the 13th sites as well, and they didn't mention it. But there's a scene. It's the scene where Jeff and Sandra and Ted have to stop the truck because there's a tree across the road. And while Jeff and Ted are moving it, Sandra goes into the woods slightly and finds the Camp Crystal Lake sign. And they have a little bit of a natter. So when she puts the sign down and walks back to the truck, there's a POV shot of Jason from between 2 trees. And you can see a sound man lying on the ground with a boom mic as Sandra walks past. And what he's doing there, I have no idea. Why he's in camera shot, I have no idea. Now, I know, Joseph, you think he's there getting some ADR audio for footsteps. But surely that's something he could do. He doesn't need to be in camera shot for.
Well, maybe they were in kind of a hurry. I don't know. I don't know why he's there, but I'd never noticed that, and I saw it, and you can see him plain as day. And how could no one else pick up on that? I've never seen that.
So that's the big reveal. Everyone feel free to throw Rotten Tomatoes at Joseph, because he's the one who bigged up this moment.
Well, I can imagine David Grove and... Sorry?
I'm just going to go on a tangent. Did you see, I sent you a link to a blooper from the film Bad Boys, starring Sean Penn and...
that was even worse.
That was incredible, wasn't it?
I haven't watched that yet.
There's a scene where Sean Penn is having a fight with somebody, and they're both rolling around the ground, punching each other. And there's a guy holding a camera just right beside them, holding a movie camera on his shoulder.
How bizarre!
In plain view, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's like you think that this Friday the 13th blooper is silly, but wait till you see that one. Just look up "Worst Movie Goof Ever," I think is the title of it on YouTube, and you'll find it. I shall check that out. But I just don't understand that. I'd never seen that before. And you think actually, because it's not just once, is it? Because there's a brief scene as she walks towards the sign in between the trees, and you see it a little bit there. But when she walks back, you can actually see him there. Or I think you can see this huge boom mic. Can't you? I didn't notice the one. I have it on here in the background. I'll try and fast forward to it.
It's a kind of. It's a very briefly as she goes shot between the trees. He's there as well. So it's twice. You see the person lying in the grass with the boom mic. But yeah, it's very, very strange. But yes, so you heard it here first on Hysteria Continues. So
if you want to reward us with money or chocolates,
exactly,
that'd be nice.
Something to tell you. Just remember, something to tell your grandchildren in the future.
Yeah.
Erik will take currency with
people will be saying,
Kit Kats.
I know exactly where I was when I heard that little nugget of factual information.
Yes. So in lieu of getting an interview with Amy Steele or anyone else in Friday the 13th Part 2, we had that, so you can't bash us. Well, maybe you can.
Doesn't mean they won't.
No, maybe not. But yes, other background for the film. Joseph, what have you got? Have you got something?
Well, I have a couple of things. I mean, these documentaries, these websites, I mean, everyone knows everything about the Friday the 13th films. But here's one thing I'm pretty sure is common knowledge, but I didn't know it until this morning. Our good friend Cameron Perry pointed out that the Friday the 13th series, now again, this is probably common knowledge, so sue me if you've heard it before. The Friday the 13th series was going to be like a anthology series. You know, each film was going to be called Friday the 13th and set on Friday the 13th, but it's going to have a different story. But that didn't pan out, and they just kind of everyone wanted to see, the continuation. They wanted to know what was up with Jason. So, they made a continuation with Jason in the Woods from, 2 on. And I think the anthology idea eventually became the series, which was, the shopkeepers, hunting down mysterious artifacts and stuff. But, if you've heard that before, I'm sorry, but I'd never heard about it until this morning. So thank you, Cameron, for that. And another thing that not many people know, and I'm sure this is not common knowledge, but my website, The Body Count Continues, is named after Friday the 13th Part 2.
No.
Can you believe it?
I can't.
I know. But that's all I have. So
it's revelations. It's revelation. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah,
well, thank you, Joseph. How about you, Nathan? Have you got anything for us this time?
No.
I
mean, nothing that, nobody else has heard like many, many times before. Unfortunately, I know all the common knowledge that us common fans know.
Okay. Well, just to, I'll come to you in a second, Erik, but of course we're just talking off air, saying that, this is one of the things about covering films like Friday the 13th Part 2, is that so much work's already been done and dug into it. And of course we've got like the, 2 fantastic books about the Friday the 13th movies, by David Grove and Peter M. Brack. So it's, if you've got any interest in them, which I imagine if you're listening to this podcast you probably have, then, hopefully we've reignited your interest in the, Friday the 13th Part 2. And, go and check those out. And of course, and also actually the DVDs, relatively recently released DVDs, all of them have got pretty good information on them, and also his name was Jason as well, wasn't it? The documentary. So, but on that, how about you, Erik? Have you got anything you wanted to regale us with?
Well, nothing major, but I was reading in Crystal Lake Memories that Greg Nicotero, the famous effects artist, says that he went to Carl Fullerton's house one day, probably late 80s, early 90s, and was watching the uncut footage of the double impalement. So that would indicate that Carl Fullerton still has the footage, and even if Paramount have lost it, they've no excuse not to, eventually release that as a deleted scene even.
Well, no, it's kind of
didn't they sell the rights to all their films to New Line? And I know New Line went under, didn't they? But I mean, who owns those rights?
Well, I assume Paramount, because their name is still on the DVDs that come out when they're reissued.
I think Paramount owned the rights to the first 7 films or 8 films.
First 8 films.
Yeah, first 8 films, and then New Line bought the rights to use the name after that. But then Michael Bay must have brought the rights to use it. Was it a co-production with Paramount? I can't remember who put out the remake.
I can't remember.
It was Platinum Dunes. Platinum Dunes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. But, yeah, well...
just a word on the original ending. Now, I'm sure everyone knows that the original ending for part 2 was the camera zooms in on Mrs. Voorhees' head, and actually the reason Mrs. Voorhees' head looks different from when it did in the fridge at the start of the film is that it's an actress with her head through the table, and what originally was meant to happen was that she was supposed to open her eyes and smile. But you'll notice that when the camera gets to a certain point, the image freezes because you can see the flickering flames sort of freeze.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
I'm glad they didn't do it, but I'd love to see the footage.
Yeah, I'd love to see the footage.
To see what it looked like.
But also the other reason the head looks different, isn't it? That I think that Alice is murdered in real life, Nathan, on the anniversary of Friday the 13th in 1981. And then the what happens, the rest of the film is taking place 4 years later, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, did they mention it 6 months later when Alice disappears? I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of like they say it's when Paul talks about it. He said the confrontation between Mrs. Voorhees and Alice happened, or the murders happened 5 years ago, didn't they? Which would mean in some ways. I mean, the thing is, you could kill yourself trying to work out the chronology of the Friday the 13th films because there's no massive kind of thought has gone into this really. But in theory, the events in Friday the 13th Part 4. Part 2 should have been happening in 1984 or 1985. Yeah, in theory, but just a couple of things I've got was just out of interest because I was reading about Marta. Is that Marta? Yeah, Marta Kober.
Marta Kober.
Yeah, who's the actress who plays Sandra, and she's got quite a sort of tragic but interesting. Life after the film in so much that, and again, this is all secondhand knowledge, so I don't know whether this is true in case Marta's lawyers are listening to this or if she can afford lawyers, I don't know, but apparently she was homeless for a while, wasn't she? And then she started doing the convention circuit relatively recently, but from all that I've read is that she's pretty, looks pretty rough, like somebody who's had a hard life. And there's quite a sad interview with her online somewhere where basically someone's asking her questions and she's just really out of it. She's just not she's just answering kind of almost nonsensically. So it was quite sad really to see that when you see actually a lot of the other people who've been in it, people like Amy Steele are very kind of still look really good and are obviously in a good place at the moment, but. It's quite sad that she doesn't appear to be that. Have you heard about that, guys?
Yeah, she was. Apparently this could be libel. So secondhand knowledge. Apparently she was on drugs for a while, and it kind of messed with her a little bit, I suppose. But Nathan, I can't remember. Was she there at the Friday the 13th convention, or did she had to cancel or something?
No, she had to cancel. The thing about her, and this is from, years back. I remember that, years ago, there was like a "Where is Marta Kober," thing going on because like nobody knew where she was at, like even her friends and family that didn't know what had happened to her. She just disappeared and she just recently kind of resurfaced. So, she was like gone for a long time, and nobody knew what happened to her.
Well, I think it's kind of, I mean, Hollywood's, it must be a pretty difficult place for actors and actresses, especially who are no longer 21. So, but I don't know what happened to her, but that's quite sort of sad. But as far as anything else extra, it's just things we haven't mentioned was the film was shot mostly in Connecticut, wasn't it? Which I think was the first film shot in New Jersey, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. New Jersey.
My geography of America is not brilliant, but how close is Connecticut to New Jersey? Is it?
It's not very. I think it might be separated from a couple of states. I can't remember. Okay. I've been to New Jersey, but I've never been to Connecticut.
But the difference is with some of the later films, they shot them in California, didn't they? And they has a completely different look, doesn't it? Because the look in Friday the 13th Part 2 looks very similar, doesn't it, to the look in Part 1 as far as kind of the locations go.
Actually, Hartford, Connecticut. Actually, Connecticut is very close to New Jersey. It's a state up, so I guess it was kind of close.
Well, that was the thing, wasn't it? Obviously, the kind of look of it, and I think they, from what I understand, is there was no sets built, was there? They did use a real camp in Part 2 and probably in Part 1 as well. The other thing we haven't talked about at all yet is obviously the controversy about who played Jason. Because Warren Gillette was hired, wasn't he, to be Jason, and he either walked or got fired for part of the movie because he couldn't or wouldn't do stunts, and is it Steve Dash or Steve Dakowitz was his original name, was brought in to do some of the film, but I think they brought Warren Gillette back in to do the final scene, jumping through the window, because they'd done. Basically, all of the clothes were made for Warren Gillette. It's Warren Gillette, isn't it?
Warrington
Gillette. Sorry, all made for him. And I think Steve Dash I read the thing probably in Crystal Lake Memories, saying that he had to wear all of his clothes, including the shoes, which were one size too small for him, which would have been made running through the forest very uncomfortable, I would imagine. But so there was all that controversy, and a lot of that's kind of obviously been cleared up, recently. Just a couple of other minor things before we get on to some of the. I've got some old reviews actually of the film, which I'll just read out a few little bits too. But the film made something like $21 million, I think, when it was released, which is about half what the original made, but in today's money, that's about $55 million. So it wasn't like a massive blockbuster, but it was certainly a solid hit. And I think the budget was only about $1 million, or it was $1 million. So it made back, made around 20 times its original budget. So for Paramount, it really showed that there was a lot of money left in making these. Is there anything else you want to say about it? I've got a few a few short reviews that people have written about it from old newspapers. If I could go through those.
Well, we were talking about Steve Daskowitz or Steve Dash playing Jason, and then Warrington Gillette playing Jason. There's just one scene. I'm sure this is also common knowledge, but Daskowitz wearing the burlap flour sack over his head, for long hours at a time. They had the part where they had the eye cut out kept flapping and hitting him in the eye, so they had to use some kind of tape to keep it down, and he ended up getting some kind of really bad burn from the material around his eye because it was kept on for so many hours. That's what I'd read about that anyway.
What I got from the Crystal Lake Memories was that the majority of the film is Steve Dash, but for legal reasons they had to credit Warrington Gillette. There was some kind of legal loophole where he could only be credited as the Jason. So
he's on Wikipedia he's credited as Jason Voorhees Unmasked, while Steve Daskowitz or Steve Dash is just credited as Jason Voorhees.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So, is there anything else you want to say about it before I've got a few?
Well, I've got a good few things. I just want to ask. can Nathan and Joseph clear up? There are a few references in the film that are strictly sort of American only. I mean, what's a Dairy Queen?
Dairy Queen is a restaurant that serves hamburgers and ice cream and, just kind of all American food.
There's one very close to me.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
And, we know a non-Dairy Queen. Did you know that? Joseph.
I know what you're
I'm not going to name names, but I happen to know a non-Dairy Queen.
Yeah, me too.
Can I just talk about the opening title sequence? Because I love the Friday the 13th logo, that the traditional one they have at the start of part 1, 2, 3, and 5, I think, use it. You know, that font. I think, and the way the logo explodes and then reveals part 2 underneath. Very effective. Because the opening credit sequence, I think, is a lost art. I mean, a lot of films, certainly blockbusters come out now with no opening credit sequence at all. And I'm always one that's very fond of them. I love the Bond opening sequences are always very creative. And I used to love the way the Friday the 13th used to open. I know that the main credits themselves are quite simple, black and white, but the logo itself, like in part 4, where the mask explodes and reveals the final chapter underneath, that type of stuff I used to really like.
It's quite funny though, isn't it? Because the way it does it is almost, I mean, in some ways it doesn't really fit the film, does it? Because the film isn't a film about explosions and that kind of thing. It's almost a bit over the top, isn't it? But it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it actually in Crystal Lake Memories it tells you how they created the effect, because of course you have to remember we're talking 1981, so these the logo had to be filmed practically. It's not a computer generated effect. So you're actually looking at I think of a wax mold of the words Friday the 13th exploding.
Wow.
And Eric, you were talking about the unused ending where she opens her eyes and smiles.
Yeah.
From what I'm reading, apparently that was supposed to be like a subtle way of answering what happened to Paul, because Jenny asked where Paul is, but then it's supposed to immediately cut to that scene and have her wink or open her eyes and smile. So, she'd be saying, "Hey, my son did it," but they obviously left that out. So, what happened to Paul is still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I'm sure Nathan has a theory.
I'm sure he's still alive with Alice somewhere.
Yeah.
Love boat.
He got married to Alice. Yeah.
No, Paul's not a final girl, so he can be dead. It's okay. Alice is a final girl. She's alive.
Okay. Right. Anything else, Eric?
Did anyone notice that, all the little paintings and self-portraits that Alice has in her house at the start? Did anyone notice that one of them looked very like Jem from Jem and the Truly Outrageous Holograms?
I didn't, but now I got to look again because I love Jem.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, I'd be very surprised if Justin got that reference, because I think you were probably a bit too old for Jem.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It looked like Ziggy Stardust to me.
Yeah, well, Ziggy and
Ziggy
Jem.
play guitar. Sorry.
Stardust memories. Are we going to discuss the pee scene?
Yes, I was about to say that. I know it's an old debate, but does anyone else get irritated when a lot of the fanboys say it was the rat peeing and not Jenny?
Yes, I think that's ridiculous. Yes. That's a lot of pee for that rat.
Why would the rat go under their pee? What would that add to that scene? What purpose would that have?
What purpose is it? Yeah, I don't get it. Because to me, the whole purpose of that scene is if Jenny was so scared that she peed, and that's how Jason knew she was there. Because he saw it, and that's how he knew. I mean, if the rat peed, if he saw a rat pee and then run off, and he's like, "Oh, okay, well, there." I mean, what purpose is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got a feeling that Steve Miner, I might be wrong in this, actually said it was the rat, but it's for one, it just seems a bit bizarre, doesn't it? That why would you? I mean, why would Ginny piss herself when she saw a rat? She's being chased by a killer, unless that was the final straw. But also,
I think it was kind of a add insult to injury type of thing.
And she'd been drinking a lot of beer.
That's true.
True. I didn't think about that, actually. Yeah.
But also, if you watch it, which I obviously did today, when the rat comes in, when the urine comes out the ends of the bed, under the bed, then the rat runs away from her face. So unless the rat ran down to the ends of the bed and pissed, or had a really full bladder, then it wouldn't have been the rat. But
there's no way a rat could have that much urine. I mean, it was a lot.
Well, rats.
Wow, we're actually talking about rat urine. This is great.
Yeah, well, rats are incontinent, aren't they? They piss as they go. They don't hold it all up.
Yeah.
So I think rats are incontinent, like mice. I think. Well, maybe I'm wrong on that, but yes. Well, we can have a mass debate about rat's piss. So
keeping things in the toilet.
Yes.
I mean, I know that Jason's main purpose in life is to go around killing people, but would it hurt him to clean his lavatory? That was disgusting.
Well, his maid had the day off.
All right, yeah.
But his whole house looked pretty gross. I mean, he doesn't keep it up very well.
No. He could have done with a bit of bleach, though.
Yes, he probably.
What does he eat?
Probably raccoons and people.
Yeah.
But at least what we haven't spoken about is Muffin. Lovely Muffin at the end.
Oh, yes.
Coming in. I mean, that was a kind of, it was basically they're redoing the final shot for the first film, weren't they? But that kind of misdirection with the dog. I don't know what type of dog that was, but the little bow in his hair.
It's what I would call it a Paris Hilton dog.
Yes.
So it looks like one that lives in a posh girl's handbag.
Exactly. But yeah, Muffin was, it's nice to see Muffin survive. Or did Muffin survive? Because we didn't see it at the end, did we? Muffin wasn't being. They should have carried Muffin out on a little stretch.
That would have been cool.
Really small stretcher.
Yeah. The dog was barking. Where's Paul?
I wonder if Muffin was invited back for part 3, and the agent said no, she's gone on to bigger things.
Well, they got Dana to do it, didn't they? So they got another dog.
Meow.
I didn't really. I only did that. It was a cheap shot. I didn't mean it, Dana. If you're listening,
yeah,
she is listening.
No, sorry. I should be apologising to Muffin, actually, shouldn't I?
One thing I noticed about part 2 is that for poor Mark, I mean, the whole campgrounds and the whole setup isn't terribly wheelchair accessible. I know he seems to get he seems to get around okay, but I mean, the scene where we first meet him and he's coming out of a cabin and Vicky says, "Oh, can I give you a hand?" And he's like, "No, I'm okay." And you see him sort of struggling through this gravelly, gritty path on his wheelchair. And how does he get into the cabin?
Maybe those, he doesn't believe in his mind he's handicapped. He wants to do everything himself. Yeah. There should have at least been a wheelchair ramp.
Well, I thought it was sad, didn't he? He said, I will not spend the rest of my life in this wheelchair. And he did, didn't he?
Yeah. His death is just so depressing. I mean, at least, he was almost about to, get lucky with what's-her-face. But then he gets killed. I mean, yeah, Vicky. Couldn't he at least, got some before he died? Because that's usually the formula. You have sex, you die. And the poor guy in the wheelchair couldn't even get, like, a hand job or anything.
And she was up for it, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
Totally. Yeah, she put on her.
She broke out the brown panties and everything.
Yeah.
But also, did you notice? I suppose that was another. I mean, it's grabbing at straws here, but Bay of Blood also had a character in a wheelchair, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes,
yeah. So I mean, it's probably grabbing at straws there, but
grasping at straws. Though I'm
but
sorry.
It had a lake as well and trees.
Yeah, and people.
I think people got killed in it too. Maybe
that's true. Yeah. So.
And can I ask? Does anyone know why does Terry throw a towel at Jason? I assume it's.
It's a last-ditch effort, maybe?
No. But if this is just after the scene where Scott falls into the trap, and she's going back to the cabin to get a knife to cut him down. Yeah. And as she's walking back, she just casually throws her towel into the bushes, which seems to be a point of view shot of Jason. I just always wondered, like, was she too lazy to carry it all the way back to the... Or
she's a litter bug. Towels are very heavy.
She's a litter bug.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, well, there's lots of unanswered questions there, which is
there is. Like, why can't Jason see Ginny when her head is clearly peeping above the bonnet of the car?
Indeed,
he's only got one eye hole.
True.
I'll give Friday the 13th 2 a credit. In slasher films, it's always the car that never starts. But at least in this movie, it's foreshadowed in the very beginning where her car is having trouble starting.
No, that's true.
At the other movies, it's just conveniently won't start. But no, they foreshadowed it so that, they get points for that.
Oh.
Yeah. Oops. Who's pouring themselves?
Yeah.
That was me drinking water.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think that pee scene got to you.
Yeah.
Well, I have to stay hydrated. It's so hot.
Do you want to hear a couple of little short snippets from reviews?
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Well, I've just got Roger Ebert, as famously Siskel and Ebert really hated the first movie. And in 1981, he gave Friday the 13th Part 2 half of 1 star out of 4, stating, "This movie is a cross between the mad slasher and dead teenager genre. About 24 movies a year feature a mad killer going berserk, and they're almost all about as bad as this one." Now, of course, I think we all disagree with him, but obviously when he says about 24 movies a year feature a mad killer going berserk, that was the good old days as far as we're concerned. I think we can probably agree on that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other reviews. There's from the Wisconsin State Journal on May the 10th, 1981. It says, "As a genre piece, Part 2 is nothing special, full of hammers to the head and cleavers to the neck, but the Teens in Trouble trade should take to it while everyone else stays home. The film is well enough made to suggest that once the cast and crew are of grown-up work, they may rise to the occasion. The only unsettling note is the care taken at the film's end to avoid resolution, thus suggesting Part 3 is in the works. Traditions are born easily in Hollywood, so they already kind of knew that this was going to go on something big." There's also, from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, says, "The plot, of course, makes no sense, the acting is marginal, and the ending weak. This is no Halloween or even Funhouse. At best, it's just a step above drive-in fodder." Damning the faint praise was Steve Fogarty in the Chronicle Telegram. It says, "For its decidedly gruesome ad campaign, Friday 13th Part 2 is surprisingly not all that bloody or gory, but the acting isn't as bad as I expected either." So, actually, I was surprised that the reviews weren't quite as scathing as I was imagining when I was looking through them. But you know, as with many of these films, they were hardly raves. So, is there anything else we want to say about that before we go on to feedback?
Am I to take from that Ebert liked Funhouse? I'm surprised.
That was Siskel. Siskel loved.
Oh, Siskel. Sorry.
Yeah, that was Mike Dupree from Cedar Rapids Gazette said that. This is no Halloween or even Funhouse.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. I think Siskel did like Funhouse, didn't he?
Yes, he loved it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's weird is Roger Ebert, he's kind of loosened up in his old age. He actually liked the remake.
Which one? Friday the 13th?
Yeah, Friday the 13th.
Ew.
Did he?
He gave it a favorable review on his website.
Oh, interesting.
Why were reviewers so mean back then?
I think what really annoyed them was that it didn't matter how bad the reviews they gave them, these films just still made loads of money, and it kind of made the reviewers feel possibly quite impotent that they couldn't actually affect the the fortunes of these movies, and I think that's why they partly hated them.
You know what's crazy is the more the bad reviews came out, the more people flocked to see the next dead teenager film.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's kind of like now we see it as a term of endearment, don't we? A dead teenager film.
That's where the term comes through. It is critic proof. That's where they get it from.
Yeah, absolutely. More so than probably. Well, I mean, superhero films are probably critic proof to some degree, aren't they? But
they seem to like them for the most part.
Yeah. So, but well. Is there anything else we want to say about Friday the 13th Part 2, or should we wrap it up and go on to feedback?
I think we've pretty much exhausted everything.
Yay, Friday the 13th Part 2. Yay.
Yay. We love you, Friday the 13th Part 2.
Yes, great.
Yes.
Well, on the original podcast, I said that Friday the 13th was a film I'd like to take into a 5-star hotel and do rude things to. Yeah. Well, I'd quite like to bring Friday the 13th Part 2 along as well and have a threesome, maybe a spit roast or something.
God.
Erik, you're so dirty.
No, I mean, we could have a meal. Well, what's your
okay, yeah, that's what you meant.
That wasn't a euphemism, I'm sure.
No.
Well, I'd also like to apologise to Dana Kimmel. I'm sorry for that little slip-up. I didn't mean that you were of the canine variety. I'm sure you're a lovely lady.
No, Justin, see, I thought it was weird that you said that, Justin, because you always say guppy about Dana. Guppy fish, yeah.
Yeah, well, I do love Dana, and I am looking forward to us covering Friday the 13th Part 3, because I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that one.
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Bring it on.
Well, shall we just take a mini break here, and we'll tell you how to write back to us and write into the show. So that's just coming up now.
Our voicemail lines are open at 858-233-9281. You can reach us via email at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. We are on Twitter. That's twitter.com/THC_podcast. Facebook fans can find us at facebook.com/The Hysteria Continues, The Body Count Continues, or Hysteria-Lives. You can check out Justin's website at hysteria.co.uk. You can check out my website at the-bodycount-continues.com. Nathan has his own side project at blogtalkradio.com/the-axe-to-grind-show. That is AXE, not AX. And finally, if you would like to purchase some merchandise, you can look us up on cafepress.com/The Hysteria Continues. And we really appreciate you listening. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, this is Adrienne King, Alice from Friday the 13th, and the Hysteria continues.
All right, and this is from Truman, who writes in and says, "Hey guys, I just want to say I love the show, and I have listened to every episode up to Island of Blood, and am making my way to the end goal. I love Erik and Justin, but as a fellow stateside, southbound good old boy from Atlanta but currently living in Pensacola, it warms my heart to know there are two Tennesseans on board in the form of Nathan and Joseph. Though Joseph suspiciously sounds more like he's from the Midwest and not the South. Think Iowa or South Dakota. Okay. Anyway, one thing I wanted to ask was, will you be covering The Prowler at some point? I love that movie to death." That's from Truman. He didn't leave a last name.
Well, thank you, Truman. I'm sure we will get round to The Prowler, won't we?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Eventually.
And are you originally from Chattanooga, Joseph? Or are you from the Midwest? All right.
I am from Chattanooga.
Okay, so you're not posing. You're not like a sleeper cell or anything like that.
No. I now worked undercover. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Right, well, thank you. Shall I go? I've got two here, so if I read the first one and then go over to you, Erik, is that okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, well, this one says, "Hey guys, thanks for reading my letter a few podcasts ago. I'm truly honoured. By the way, the other podcast I mentioned used special effects every 5 seconds. You see, we thought you might have been sarcastic, but now we know you're not. So you guys use them, but in a more tasteful manner. LOL. So I have to admit, you guys have totally changed the way I get to work. I work in an office and I have to drive 45 minutes back and forth. Normally I would just hear music, but since I discovered your amazing podcast, I normally hear one podcast a day, starting the first ones you did and get into the newer stuff. I'm really amazed how much fun I have listening in. I even started hearing them while I work, and it makes me want to look up some of these films. I just bought The Initiation and House on Sorority Road, so I can go back and re-listen to the podcast you did on them. I love the last podcast on the Case of the Bloody Iris. I love Edwidge Fenech-Jali, starting from The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward to more trashy ones like Strip Nude for Your Killer. To me, she's a symbol of the early 70s giallo, as much as the Black Glove Killers and the other staples of the genre. I think she just captures that 70s Euro sex symbol, and she just has this charm to her. She's also visually interesting because of her features. You can't really nail where she's from, and she just has an erotic look to her. The Sergio Martino, Edwidge Fenech-Jali are my personal favourites, but second place would be the Luciani Aroli, Susan Scott, and followed by Emilio P. Miraglia, Marina Malfatti. I really think the Aroli and I can never say his name. Jali are really underrated.
We're having Skype.
What I love about both filmmakers, is the colours that they work with. Both their Jali don't look like the other Jali at the time. Their films were bright, colourful, fashionable, cheesy, flashy, and with wonderful music. They look like something out of a 70s fashion magazine. I know they are better made Jali, like What Have You Done to Solange, The Fifth Chord, My Dear Killer, and Who Saw Her Die, but I would really love your thoughts on Luciano Aroli and Emilio P. Miraglia, because they were filmmakers who only made a few films in their career. But I really think stuck out in a sea of films where all the films looked and felt the same. As a filmmaker, I'm just in love with these films. They're a perfect mix of cheese, kills, and wonderful visuals. I can't wait for the next Jali podcast. And I also got my copy of Teenage Wasteland, and I love it. Such an amazing book. Thanks, Justin. Best wishes, Giovanni Baranda. So sorry if I mispronounce Emilio P. Melo, because with a hangover, it's not, my Italian's not that good. But thank you ever so much for writing in, and I'm glad you enjoyed the Jali podcast, because
I have to agree with him. I got your book as well finally, and it's a beautiful book. I have to say, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I will tell you this, Justin. I showed it to Grant, and he thought it was amazing.
Oh,
and he kept saying, "You know somebody that wrote this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he just thought that was the most amazing thing in the world.
Poor Grant. He's so like stuck in the past. He's just now starting to get on Facebook.
He's afraid of technology. He doesn't even have the internet.
Doesn't he really? Wow.
Just on his phone.
Well, there you go. But I think what just going to say, Giovanni, thank you ever so much again for writing in. And I think we probably will cover... I'd love to actually do Strip Nude for Your Killer. That'd be another good one to do on the podcast at some point in the future.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, well, thank you for writing in, and keep on listening.
Did he ask us what we thought about well, he asked us about what we thought about certain Jali, did he not?
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting... as I was reading, I was concentrating on reading out, and I forgot what the question was. So...
we like it.
We like them, yes.
Yes.
But yes, we will cover more of them, I'm sure, in the not.
Come to think of it, I don't think there's many Giallo films that I don't like. I mean, I think I've liked just about everyone I've seen.
I would like to. It'd be good to cover one of the Susan Scott ones, actually, because they're really good fun. The one, especially like the one where she's a fashion model, takes LSD and sees that murder with the killer with the spiked gloved hand. That's
Death Walks in High Heels, is it? Or Death Walks at Midnight?
Yes, one of those, isn't it?
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you, Giovanni. And Erik, have you got something for us?
I've got one here from our good friend Tosca Topsocks. Yay. Yes.
Tosca!
Yay. He says, "Hey, Joseph, Justin, Erik, and Nathan. Hope all is good with you guys. I really enjoyed the Crimmy Giallo episode, and whilst you guys didn't seem overly keen on the Crimmy, it has tempted me to check a few out. I've really enjoyed the recent quizzes, even though you seem to play a bit fast and loose with the rules at times. And it was good to hear Erik win the last quiz, as I feared a sulk of epic proportions. Go me.
Think we all.
I am not the Inga of the podcast."
Yes, you are.
Honestly, how gruesome. Just a quick suggestion. It would be great to hear even more on what you think of some of the latest film releases, sort of like a breaking news, new movie section. Whilst I try and keep on top of all new releases, I would have missed out on some gems if it hadn't been for you. I've just caught up with Wrong Turn 4 and ATM, and whilst not high art, I still had a blast. Let's face it, ATM stretched believability to breaking point, but fuck it. I still enjoyed it, and that's the main thing. Also, it had Brian Geraghty in it, and to be honest, I'd enjoy watching him open an envelope. Anyway, guys, you keep well and have a great summer. Justin and Erik will know that the summer in the UK has been terrible, so here's hoping for a sunny July. And happy 4th of July to Joseph and Nathan, and that's from Tosca Topsocks, a.k.a. Kev.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Tosca. Okay, on the subject of new releases and that, I am really, really, really bad at catching up on the latest releases.
So am I.
Particularly if they're kind of straight-to-video stuff.
Yeah.
But I rely on you guys to inform me.
I usually hear about it second or third hand, like somebody will post about it on the forum, and it'll take me a while to read it, and I'll be like, oh, cool. But no, I could not spearhead a segment about new releases. I'd be terrible at it.
No, neither would I. Well, I in my defense, I live miles away from the nearest cinema, and my local video store is kind of mainstream, so it wouldn't have a lot of obscure straight to DVD titles.
Well, we talked about VHS, didn't we, on the last podcast? Because I think that's probably the one that I'm most interested in checking out. But I can't think of anything else that's coming out that I've got a real kind of burning desire to see.
The only thing I can think of at the moment, and I don't even think it's went into production, is Neil Marshall's new movie. I can't even remember the name of it, Hellground or something like that, where it's a slasher film set at a carnival.
Oh, that sounds good.
You also want to see VHS, don't you?
Yeah, I definitely want to see VHS. Yeah. But it's not a slasher film, is it?
No, I don't even know. I haven't even seen the previews for it.
An anthology kind of found footage, paranormal type thing. I don't know.
There is a film, and I can't remember the name of it now, that I read about that sounded quite good, which was the basic story was a woman who was a final girl in a slasher movie, either for real, as in she was actually a real survivor, or she was played a final girl in a 80s slasher movie, and then her teenage daughter's friends start dying for real, and she gives them advice about how to survive. Does that ring any bells with any of you?
No, but that sounds
no.
Yeah.
That sounds cool though.
It does. I can't remember what it's called now, but I did read about that a few weeks or months ago, I've completely slipped mind where I read that. Or if I dreamt it, then I'm copywriting that right now, but I don't think I did. So, if you know what it is, let us know. But that's good.
And would anyone else enjoy watching Brian Geraghty open an envelope?
I don't know who he is.
I didn't know who he was either. Apparently, he was in. Let me see. I had his IMDb open earlier. He was in The Hurt Locker, and he was in I Know Who Killed Me, which I think is a great underrated film of modern times.
Oh, I want to see it.
And
is that the one with Lindsay Lohan?
Yeah, and is it Lindsay Lohan? Yeah, it is.
I Know Who Killed Me.
That is
Yeah.
It's so crappy, but it's enjoyable.
It is. He was in When a Stranger Calls remake as well. He played Bobby. Now I wouldn't recognize him at all, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, I don't. That name doesn't sound familiar to me.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't like ATM, and I thought the characters were morons, so I don't remember who he is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tosca, and I will keep an eye out for new releases. And also, bearing in mind, we are releasing this, recording this a fortnight before it comes out, so whatever we're talking about is going to be out of fashion in a fortnight. So, Nathan, I don't think you haven't got anything, have you? Or have you to read out?
No. I've got nothing.
Oh, okay. You just have to make something up.
Dear Nathan, I love you. Signed, Nathan.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's nice.
That's nice.
P.S. This is Nathan. Buy more detergent.
Well, I've got another one here, and this is from Chris. And he says, hey, Justin, been listening to the podcast since its humble beginnings and just wanted to reach out and touch my favourite podcasters. I hope not that kind of way, Chris, but yes, very sexy. But my name's Chris, and I'm located in Vancouver, BC, which is, what would that be, British Columbia?
British Columbia, yeah.
Yeah, Canada. Being as I'm a slasher fanatic from Canada, it's safe to say that most of my favourites are homegrown. Black Christmas, Rituals, My Bloody Valentine, Prom Night, the list goes on, and all classics, obviously. But I also dig the Giallo flicks, so another kind of a nod to the Giallo. I dig them hard, so it's great to see a few eps dedicated to them. Fingers crossed for Torso Stripped Nude, double bill episode. Oh, it's interesting again, we just mentioned that, didn't we? One of my favourite non-Canuck slasher flicks has got to be The House on Sorority Row, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that flick in a future episode. Well, we covered that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
It's number 12, I believe it was.
Yeah, go back and we've got a whole episode dedicated to that. So, and just wondering if any of you guys have seen the Pakistan slasher zombie mashup Hell's Ground, a really wild flick that's worth a watch for genre junkies like yourselves. And just while we're talking about, I have seen Hell's Ground. Have any of you seen it?
No.
It sounds like it's not the same name as the new Neil Marshall movie.
No, I think the Neil Marshall might be Hellfest. I can't remember.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, I have seen Hell's Ground, and it is completely barking, completely bonkers. And for a film, because Pakistan had quite a rich heritage of horror movies until, back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, I believe. And it kind of went off the boil, I kind of guess. And Hell's Ground is very atypical, I think, for a Pakistani horror movie. But yeah, it is quite mental. It's got a killer in a burqa chasing people with a battle axe, I think, if I remember correctly. So,
I want to see it.
Yeah,
me too.
Worth checking
I'm
out.
going to find it.
Yeah.
What's it called? Hell's Ground?
Hell's Ground, yeah.
What year did it come out?
It's probably about 3-4 years ago. It's definitely worth a watch. It's quite, it's a cross between zombie and slasher movie with a killer in the burqa. So yeah, it's definitely worth a check out. Also, Chris goes on and says, a suggestion for future top threes is top 3 Canadian slasher flicks, and he's put a winky face, so he's just joking, but I don't know, that could be a good one. I think a top 3 killers' death scenes would be rad. One of my favourites has got to be the demise of Jason in part 3, Axe to the Head. That'd be quite a good one to do, wouldn't it? coming up.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Also, Big Stevie's death in Murder Loves Killers 2. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. A Murder Loves Killers 2 is a great little indie slash movie that I reviewed, and I think I interviewed the person who made it from a few years ago, and that's definitely worth checking out. He also says, I know Joseph and Nathan are working on a film. How's it going? Any progress? So, do you want to regale us of anything?
It's kind of at a standstill right now with Nathan trying to find a house, but we will get to it.
Okay, right. And Chris also goes on and says, I'm wondering if you or Erik have ever considered writing or directing a short or possibly an indie feature. Erik, have you ever thought about putting a director's cap on?
Not really, I have to say, no. I did work in the sound department of a short film a long time ago, and I saw kind of how tedious and boring a film set can be.
Right.
So, yeah.
I did make some very short films when I was at college, but they weren't very slasher-esque. Although I do remember making a slasher movie, a bit like a kind of Hairdresser Massacre, I imagine, when I was at college once, and we were all very drunk. But I had no idea where that went.
I made one when I was a child about a cat attacking my family. It was basically, I was going meow, meow, and I was using the camera as the POV of the cat. And when the cat would jump on someone, I'd go...
Was that called The Uninvited by any chance?
No. It was called Through the Eyes of a Cat. It was supposed to be like a family-friendly thing, but then the cat went crazy.
Well, when we were in college, I did a media production course in college, and one of the modules was a television module, and we made a short film clip pretending it was a slasher film because we had a panel on discussing violence in movies, and I played the victim in this slasher movie clip, but I had a real problem. Sorry?
Were you in a shower?
No.
Soaping your breasts?
No, I was fully clothed.
Okay.
And I got hit over the head.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said I got hit over the head with a hammer, and I had to lie there pretending I was dead, but I couldn't keep my eyes open without blinking. So basically you have this dead body lying there blinking like there's no tomorrow. So my acting skills, don't even stretch to being dead. They're that bad.
Well, but mind you,
I also made it's not a slasher film, but I made a stop motion movie a few years ago. When I was living with my ex-girlfriend, she had a stuffed penguin. So I made the stuffed penguin walk out of a door, down a hallway. He climbed the kitchen cabinet, and he stole a granola bar from a basket. And then when I sliced it together, I put the music from the Pink Panther through it. So it's like, and he grabs the granola bar, and it's like, dun, dun.
That needs to go on YouTube, I think.
Yeah, I think I might still have it. I'll have to see if I can find it.
Okay.
I made a lot of slasher movies.
Well, we know that.
You have. Well, of course, Nathan, you've got most of these up on YouTube, aren't they? So you've got
Actually, I found a new one. I got to post it at some point.
Have you? What, an original from back when?
Yeah.
Is it starring in it?
Well, I've got two.
Is it starring Hazel?
Yes, she's in it. She's in both of them.
Is Shoe Rack in it?
I can't remember. See, I made two, and I found one called Office Maniac, where it's my grandma's house, but it's supposed to be an office building in New York City. And my great aunt is picked on by her coworkers, so she goes crazy and starts trying to kill them. And my grandmother's her boss, Bedelia Carrington. Yeah, and my next one that I found it's going to take a while to edit it together because it's got a lot of scenes where they messed up. It's called Vicious Grannies. It's a rip-off of Rabid Grannies, basically.
Fantastic.
How many films is there in the old Federal Massacre series?
There's just three. And they're all on YouTube.
They are, yeah.
Yes. Well, Chris, have a look out for those because it's definitely worth a watch. And just to finish off what Chris was saying, he says, I work in the TV film industry, primarily post-production. I've written and directed a handful of shorts myself, so it'd be interesting to see those, Chris, if you can let us know we can watch them. I'm actually in the early stages of the development of an indie feature, slasher, of course. I've just recently finished the final draft of script, a breakdown, and privately raised $15,000 thus far, which is a pretty impressive figure. So the next steps are focusing on my shot list, storyboards, as well as continuing my fundraising. I'm budgeting the film for $50,000 to $60,000. I know it's ultra low, but I've got lots of friends. Was that the kind of budget you had for the for Hairdresser Massacre?
My budget was 0.
Well, there you go, Chris. You see, yeah, watch and learn. Where he says, I've got lots of friends in the local industry and also getting lots of cheap free work. Hopefully everything works out and you'll be reviewing my slasher flick within the next few years. Well, yeah, I'd be interested to keep us informed on that. And so lastly, I just picked up your book the other day and my initial reaction is it's beautifully put together. The collection of images, art is absolutely amazing. I'm only a few chapters in, but you can already tell that it'll be a book that I revisit for years to come. This puppy is definitely going to live on my coffee table for a long, long time. Keep up the good work, lads. Chris. So thanks ever so much for writing in, Chris. And hopefully we answered all your questions during that. But is that everything? Is that all the feedback?
We have left the building.
We have left the building, have we? Oh, we have. Okay. Well, it's quite an epic show. I think we're going to be at 2.5 hours now. So only befitting the epic Friday the 13th Part 2. So thanks for listening. And what are we playing out with, Joseph?
More.
Are we going to say what we're doing next?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's Nathan's pick, so what is it, Nathan?
Yes. Prepare yourselves.
I want to keep us in the woods with Don't Go in the Woods.
Alone.
Yeah, Alone. So we are going to be covering that classic, brilliant film.
Okay. Yes.
But we're playing out with more of Harry Manfredini's score, I believe.
We are indeed. So, yeah, well, thanks for joining us yet again. And, happy Friday the 13th, wherever you may be. And hopefully you don't befall the advances of a machete-wielding lunatic. And so we'll see you next time. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.